And hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of My Isolation Podcast. And today we will be finally talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And Alex is back once
I'm
again.
back. It's time. Let's do it.
All right,
Let's
so let's
dig up
quickly
these dinosaur bones and let's get to work.
yeah, let's do that. Um, Before we get into that, though, let's quickly because we did an entire retrospective on the first four movies. So you want to hear our in-depth thoughts on that? Just go rewatch that. But to quickly sum them up, we love the first three, and then Kingdom of Crystal Skull. I don't mind it. Alex doesn't like it. That's pretty much
Yeah.
it. That's pretty much the gist of it. And so a fifth indie movie was kind of always on. I think it was always on the cards. A fifth Indiana Jones. I remember George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, talking about it quite often, particularly after Indy 4 came out. I think they had a five picture deal with Paramount actually. Back in like
Hmm.
1979, I think they made a five picture deal. Um, and and yeah, so yes, they basically. I think I started working on this in 2008, but it really wasn't until I want to say 20. Yeah,
Hmm.
then it was 2015 when this when it got
Yeah.
confirmed um, that they were eventually would make another one, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's going to come out. Oh no, March 2016 they announced it, and then it was going to come out in 2019. And obviously that didn't happen. This movie's been in development for
Yeah.
decades. Well, not decades, but
A long time.
years and years
Yeah. A
and
long
years,
time,
a
definitely.
very long time. And then Spielberg was going to do it, then he dropped out, and then James Mangold came in, and then they were going to film it, but then COVID
Hmm.
happened, and then Harrison Ford injured himself like he always does, and so yeah, this movie's development is very interesting, but it's not really, because
It
I
it
remember
kind of
when,
makes you wonder, was it even worth the effort in the long run? You know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they made it anyway. So here we go.
He made it anyways. It's actually a quote from George Lucas. I just want to say. So I think this was back in 2008 when he was talking about the MacGuffin. Um, he was saying how it should be supernatural but still grounded in reality, with an historical like
Why did
background.
he? Why did he then make the crystal skulls?
This was around the time Crystal Skull came out. Yes, but do you want to know what he said, Alex? Do you want to know what the quote he
What
said
did he
was?
say?
You can't just make something up like a time machine.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, Georgie
That's fine.
boy, they,
It,
they did it anyways.
in all honesty, I didn't mind that stuff in it. To be honest with you, I felt
Mm,
it felt weirdly appropriate, especially because of what happens at the end of the film, which we'll get into.
yeah.
I think it felt more faithful to Indiana Jones more so than a fucking alien. So I mean, George
Yeah.
Lucas is there's loads of clips of George Lucas saying things that when you think about it in retrospect, it's like, oh, wait, he said that. Like, there's that thing where he talks about
Mm.
like how he says, "Oh, special effects isn't like it's a tool. It's not. It shouldn't be used to tell the story." And then you look at what he did in the prequel trilogies, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, did you
Yeah,
actually
it's
believe
like,
that, George, or have you changed your mind?"
did
I don't know. It doesn't really
did you
matter.
really did you really believe in that?
He's a weird guy, George
But yeah,
Lucas.
so yeah, so I went to go see this last Monday. You saw
Literally
this
yesterday, yeah.
yesterday. Yeah. So it's been a while. Um, so yeah, so we were waiting, but the build up to this movie was quite odd. You had people looking forward to it, people on the fence because of Crystal Skull. But overall, I liked it enough. I thought it was a fine
Yeah,
film.
it's a
Um,
very it's a very okay film. I just think that,
yeah,
which we'll get into a bit. There's just things about it which I
mm,
kind of just look at it and go, "There's little
yeah,
threads there that are easy to pull."
mm,
But I think overall,
mm,
if you just want to watch something for like 2.5 hours and you don't and you just want to watch like an action adventure film, there's worse films out there. There really is.
oh yeah, yeah. Uncharted from last year. That's a
I,
terrible movie.
I didn't even
Uh,
bother watching it because I was like, "There's no point in."
yeah, I went to the cinema to see it,
Oof.
and I was just so bored, like throughout the whole
Yeah, I will
thing.
say one thing about this film: it's not that boring. I think that's what I
Oh
was
no,
more worried about. Is I was going to go in and I was going to be like,
mm,
"Ugh, this is boring. Harrison Ford is too
yeah,
old and he can't do this," and like or all the other actors
mm,
weren't going to be enough to fill in the gaps from like the previous films.
yeah,
But
mm.
no, it actually wasn't that boring. Apart from the maybe like I'd say like the beginning of
Did,
the final third, I was getting a bit bored. But
mm,
then the ending was so
I would-
ridiculous that
yeah,
I just we'll get into
mm,
that.
yeah. But overall, I would say. because obviously this film was supposed to do it's this film's job was to basically kind of end Indiana Jones, sort of bookend this franchise and give him a swan song,
Hmm.
even though he already had it in a in a Last Crusade. But you
Yeah,
know,
well,
whatever. Uh, and I would say this though, for what it was set out to do, which was to end the series, I think it did its job well enough, to the point where I can kind of look at it and go, you know, it's a fine film. It's a solid enough ending. Like in terms
it
of
could
like
have been worse. It really could have been.
exactly like considering you know like a lot of other franchises that have had just terrible,
Hmm.
terrible endings. In the last, you know, like you've got the Fast and Furious franchise, which is
Or
ending with,
franchises that don't
and
end. I know
yeah,
technically
exactly.
Indiana Jones already technically ended with The Last Crusade, but, to me, you can't make an Indiana Jones film without Harrison Ford. You really can't.
Yeah,
He is the
yeah.
person that makes that character what it is. You can make other films inspired
Mm,
by it, definitely, which I've
yeah.
definitely not got a problem with. I'd love to see more films like that, but I think for Indiana Jones, this has to be the last one because I can't see him
Yeah,
being in another one.
yeah. Mm. I mean, I'll go on to that a little bit later, the future of
Mm.
Indiana Jones, but we'll get on to that mainly towards the end. Um, so yeah, let's talk about let's start with the main man himself. Let's talk about Harrison Ford because Harrison Ford's performance in this movie is, you know, he's not. I'll say this about Harrison Ford. Like he very clearly loves Indiana Jones as a
Mhm.
character. He feels very connected to him, and like he has a lot of passion for him. You know, he could have easily just, you know, phoned this in and would have been like, "Urgh, oh, I gotta do this again." That's my terrible
It's a
Harrison
good
Ford
Harrison Ford
impression.
impression. I've heard a mate say that before. He said that when he was playing Han
Yeah.
Solo again.
Oh god.
He was like, "Ah,
um,
fuck this."
yeah, he could have easily done it, but the fact that he was pushing for another indie film.
Yeah,
Really, he talked
I
about a
definitely think for
lot.
him this feel he to him he said it in a lot of the interviews that have come out of him that this is like his he's like this is where it ends for me specifically. It doesn't matter what
Mm,
happens after this. This is where it ends for me specifically, which is where I'm like, all right, okay,
yeah,
this is the end of Indiana Jones then, because
yeah,
without
it's the
him,
end.
it's not possible.
Mm. Um, but like his performance in this is terrific. It's probably I wouldn't you know, he's very clearly just giving it his all. He's clearly like acting his heart out in this last one, and there are definitely some moments in there where, with because of the way the character of Indiana Jones is portrayed in this, he's basically a fallen hero, which I quite like that because I feel like, you know, as you know, he's a much more older
Mm.
man now. He's like, you know, he's in his 70s in this, and the world around him has changed, and the world has, you know, and he feels he's a man, quite literally, like he feels like he's a man out of time. And I quite like the fact that a hero like him just doesn't fit into the 60s where, you know, he's got a whip and and he whacks everyone with the whip. But you know
I
that
think
those, you know, those kind of
I think
heroes.
I
But
think
like, yeah.
this kind of idea is that one of the things that I feel is the major problem I've got with this film. Like I said, I did enjoy it, but
Mm,
there are definitely there are ideas in there that I thought were really interesting, but I don't think a
mm,
lot of them become very fleshed out. And I think that is
mm,
where the problem lies for me with this film, which I'll get into in more detail when we get into it. But I'd say
yeah.
for now, what I'll say about Harrison Ford is, yeah, he did a really good job. You could tell that for
Mm,
him, this was a key performance for him to do. He really wanted to do
yeah.
his work his hardest, and it
Mm,
was a performance he wanted to be proud of at the end of it. And I think he did a good job with that. I generally think he did.
mm,
Um,
mm.
the only
Uh,
thing about him that I didn't like, and
yeah.
this is something we'll probably talk about, is I didn't like the fact that they used him to voice Indiana Jones in the beginning
Yeah. Yeah. The
sequence, in the
de-aged
de-age
thing.
sequence, which we'll
Yeah.
talk
Uh,
about, as I assume at some point about that whole sequence.
well, we're talking about Harrison Ford, so we might as well talk about it now. To
Yeah,
be honest,
true.
like, would you like because the de aging? I mean, here's the thing about de aging. It's a very, it's like it's a tool that I'm just not a big fan of.
Yeah.
I feel like when Hollywood's first, well, obviously, like you know, when they first started testing it out, when you had films like X Men Origins Wolverine, where you know Patrick Stewart comes in and he's de aged, and he just looks, you know, at the start it looked terrible, and then Marvel started kind of incorporating a little bit more. You had the first Ant-Man movie where you had a de-aged Michael
Mm.
Douglas, which actually looked okay. Then you had you know, you had Nick Fury in Captain Marvel, which actually looked really well, which done really well. I don't know, but maybe I don't know. Maybe if Samuel Jackson's just much more easier to de-age or something like that. I don't know. And but a lot of other films, particularly like, you know, like Rogue One, for example, where literally brought back Peter Cushing, even though he's dead, which I didn't really like. And then you had the new Ghostbusters movie, which brought back Harold Ramis, which I was so about. Um, um, and it's just one of those things where de aging, bringing people back with CGI, making them look younger. It doesn't look right. It just looks very uncanny, and it's just one of those. I feel like if you use it in smaller increments, like maybe like a smaller scene, like a very brief kind of scene, it looks fine. But when you have it for like a long kind of like 20-minute action sequence like this one, it just doesn't look correct. And like there's times in this movie where at first when they take the mask off Indy's head and they reveal his face. At first, it looked cool, like when he was just staring at them. But then when he when the head moves and he starts talking, it's like,
That's
oh,
definitely the bit for
it's
me
like
when I
it's
noticed it. There's something about
uh,
the teeth in particular I noticed. You can
yeah,
see that, like, the teeth aren't, like, actually inside of the mouth, they're just on, like, a what would essentially be, like, a flat surface. Because I imagine
yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how they've done it. I assume they used a younger actor to just sort of play the body double of Harrison Ford.
What I think they did was they had a yeah, they had a double, but he was wearing a Harrison Ford
Yeah, and then
mask.
they put stuff over that, and that's probably where the problem
Yeah,
lies, is that if he's wearing a Harrison Ford mask, it can't move.
yeah,
You know, it can't. So they have to like do those movements themselves. So it looked like literally
mm,
his teeth weren't in his mouth. They just like it was like a film screen or something that was like put over it.
yeah,
And it was that sequence I actually really didn't mind. I think it went on for a little bit too long, which is
yeah.
another thing
I, I really enjoyed that.
with this film. I
Yeah,
think this film is way too long.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
I think
It
some of
is
the
too
action
long to be fair.
sequences in particular are just way too drawn out. And there are moments where
Mm,
I was sitting there going, right, can this scene just end now? Which is not something I want to say in an
yeah.
action scene. I want to
Mm,
feel like as if I'm like, oh my god, wow, this is so intense. But I didn't really feel that
mm.
with some of the action scenes, unfortunately. But
Uh,
yeah,
I think, well, yeah, you finish your point,
yeah,
actually.
I suppose with that that
Mm,
whole beginning sequence, I get what they were trying to do, which is
yeah,
they were testing out this technology, and they were like, maybe at some point, because obviously we know this is Harrison Ford's last one. Maybe at some point we could do
mm,
Indiana Jones films in the future without Harrison Ford. And it's like, no, just don't do it.
mm.
Just this isn't the answer.
It's yeah, and it's just one of those things where, if you're gonna the thing with de-aging is it doesn't look right, and it doesn't I don't think de-aging is ever gonna look good. I just don't think it's good
Well, I
technology,
think
and I
the
feel
problem with it is that it's not the technology itself that's bad. It's the way in which
mm,
studios do it.
yeah,
So they're always going to want to cut corners because they want to do it as quickly as possible, and it'll never look perfect.
yeah,
To
they never look
You can
perfect,
see
yeah.
people on YouTube who've done similar deep fake stuff, and it looks amazing. And it's because
Yeah,
because they have the
mm,
time to do it. Because they're not
yeah,
constrained
exactly.
by, like, deadlines and, like, budget and stuff like that. They can just make it in their own
Mm,
time. And also at one
yeah,
stage, you kinda think, "Well, wouldn't it just make more sense just to do CGI animation as, like, a full thing, a full film?" You know what I mean?
mm,
That would be easier than
yeah,
just getting
uh,
some actor and just, like, trying to put someone else's face on them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But it
yeah, yeah,
it's a weird one, really, because like I said, I didn't
yeah,
mind that sequence. I think in essence, it was a cool little sort of like, this is what Indiana
mm,
Jones did during the Second World War. Here's a scene where he got on a
yeah,
train with all these Nazis. That like, yeah, it just went on for a bit too long. But I think overall, it's not bad.
mm.
It's not a bad sequence.
Oh,
But
no.
yeah, Harrison Ford did look really creepy.
I think it's probably one of the best action sequences in the
Yeah,
movie,
it
really.
really
I
is.
thought
They
it was
came out
very
strong with that.
yeah. It was a very strong piece. I was really getting engaged with the story. The few downsides to that was obviously the de-aging, and then there was a few bits like when they're in the tunnel, and then the Nazi generals pushed Indy on the top of the tunnel, and
Well, there was one
um,
bit. There was one
yeah,
bit where that Nazi
yeah,
general punched Indiana Jones in the face, and he just didn't. His face didn't react.
yeah, oh
He just
god,
like he
yeah,
looked like he had a neutral expression. It's like he's just been punched in the face. I
mm,
know the deepfake technology can only do so much, but come on, man.
mm,
I've seen Harrison Ford get
yeah,
pretend punched in other films, and I've seen what face he makes, and he doesn't make that face. He's like,
yeah,
"Rrr." His face is stretched out. He's like,
Arr.
"Rrr," like that.
Yeah,
Great. Oh well.
yeah,
Oh
exactly.
well. I mean, when I
Um,
saw that stuff in the trailer, I was like, this is going to be the bit of the
yeah,
film that's going to be really weird to watch.
mm,
And I think a lot of people have had that same kind of reaction of just sort of, why? Eh, yeah,
Yeah,
like that.
it's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's fine. Yeah,
just, yeah.
whatever.
It's alright, it's alright. This and the other problem I had with it was, what's his name? Mads
Yeah.
Mikkelsen's character, um,
Mhm.
Voller. Like, how the fuck did he survive
Yeah,
getting
I mean
hit? Like, I know, like, when he reappears in the film, he's got a scar on his face, but, like, no, like,
yeah,
you
it
like,
does, doesn't it? Yeah.
no. You can't, like, you can't survive that with just a scar. Like, that face has to be
Yeah, I
fucking,
mean,
like,
it
destroyed or
doesn't make
something
any
like that.
sense, but whatever. It's an Indiana
Yeah.
Jones film, whatever.
Mm.
Crazy stuff
Yeah.
happens in these
He's
films,
got
and you just kind of go, all right, whatever. But yeah, I
mm.
think that was hard. I remember when I saw that happen in the cinema, I went, wow, he's dead. But I know he's coming back. I was like,
Yeah.
he's dead. There's no
He's
way.
dead. That
Unless it
dead.
turned out that he traveled
Yeah.
back in time before.
Yeah. I was thinking, like,
A
that could've
little
been cool.
twist there. No, it didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. Mm.
We'll get onto time travel stuff later on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so we have that sequence to open up the film, and then it just cuts immediately to Indiana Jones being an old man.
being an old man in his underwear, telling kids to turn the
Turn that
fucking music down.
fucking music down, you bastard.
I I'll say this, I did find that quite funny, to be fair, but I feel like, because he's, he's literally like the old man from Up,
I
Carl
think
Fredrickson. He's basically
Yeah, I
that.
think, and this is something that I'm gonna bring up as a contention point. I do think because
Mm,
I didn't mind. Really like that opening little bit with Indiana Jones with him being like a crotchety old man.
mm.
But I think that's something
Yeah.
eh, once again they put in the film. Like you could tell that this was an idea that this film was written by four people as well. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was written by
James
who wrote
Mangold was
this
one of the
movie?
writers, and then there was
Yeah.
few others, few of the other probably Disney writers.
David Kopp. Well, I think when that happens, a lot of it's, due to, like,
It's rewrites and
s
stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
rewrites and stuff. They keep when if they keep stuff in from, like, other
Yeah,
scripts,
yeah,
they
yeah,
have to
which
give
is
them
fair enough,
credit.
that's not a problem, but
Yeah. Like because David
but
Kopp was credited, but he, like,
yeah.
dropped out, like,
Yeah, but
twice.
this is what I mean about this idea where there are
Mm,
ideas in there that you can tell from, like, whichever versions of the scripts they've come from that were in there,
mm,
but then because there was so
yeah,
many, as they say, too many cooks spoil the broth, um,
mm,
it just then becomes like a mess, and that's one of the things
yeah,
that I that's like I said, when I really liked that first sequence is I really wanted there to be more scenes of Indiana Jones being old. Like, they're playing up this
mm,
idea that it's like, oh, he's retiring from his job and he doesn't go on the
yeah, yeah,
adventures like he used to. He's not a young man anymore. They have the whole
mm,
stuff with Salah as well, where he's talking, oh,
yeah,
we used to go on adventures, indeed, just like we used to. I wish we could do that again. And he's like, ah, well, we're past that now, kind of thing. And it's like,
yeah, past our
I
prime.
would have liked it if they'd have played that up even more. Like, I'm genuinely talking, like,
Mm,
there's a scene,
yeah,
Connor. He's got his whip, and he's about to do one of his classic, actions, and then
mm,
like he tries to use the whip, and he's like, "Oh, my back!" And like
yeah,
like stuff like that. Or
yeah, you want stuff like that.
yeah,
So you felt like they didn't go you feel like they didn't really push it far enough
no,
or
I
yeah,
just think for me, what would have been a more satisfying
mm,
film is like you've got this bit
mm,
where Indy opens up where it's like, oh yeah, he's divorced from Marion. After the stuff in
yeah,
there, he's an old man. He lives in a apartment by himself. He's crotchety years old. He doesn't like the young kids
mm,
playing this goddamn hippie music. And stuff like
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
it's like you could have played that up even further with physical. I know that he needs to do action based stuff, and there was a bit when I thought they were
yeah,
still going to do. That bit when they're in the records room and he tries to fight off that guy at first, but then he just kind of immediately bats him away and punches him. I thought that they were
yeah, yeah,
playing that it's like Owen is still trying to be like he was when he was younger, but he's a 70-year-old man
mm,
now. He can't fight the same way he used to. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And I thought then they
mm,
were going to build that up in the film to it being like, oh, and there's little moments where he tries to do things he used to do. Like maybe there's a scene where he tries to use his gun, but he's got
yeah.
cataracts, so he can't see properly. He's like, I can't
So
aim this
God
thing, and he's
damn.
shaking and stuff. And then
Yeah,
by the end of the film, maybe there's that really big dude. He's the classic Indiana Jones trope, a big man that
mm,
you got to fight.
big
And
man,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
by the end
yeah,
of
the
the
big
film,
guy,
he
yeah,
was going to have to fight that guy again, and then he was going to be a bit more like classic Indy. Maybe still
yeah,
use his brain a bit more in the fight instead of just beating the guy down. He has to actually outsmart him a little bit. Like
yeah,
little things like that, I think would have
mm,
been more satisfying. But I just don't think that they just kind of abandoned it, unfortunately. Apart from a couple of
mm,
lines here and there, where like, "Oh, Andy, you're so old now," and he's like, "Yep," and it's like, "Well,
yeah,
he's just doing the same thing he did when he was 38 years old or however old he was in the films,"
mm,
and that became
yeah,
frustrating for me a little bit. But
mm.
Also, at the same time, it was really nice to just see Indiana Jones punch some Nazis again. So, swings and roundabouts.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah, but
yeah.
he doesn't really do the thing of Indy in this film, I mean, again, it's probably due to Harrison Ford's age, he doesn't really do a lot of fighting, he does a lot of running
Yeah,
he does a lot of running and
and
chasing,
that's what
but,
I mean
you know
where I say that would have probably have been a good thing to put in the film with this thing about him being old.
mm,
Just use it. Harrison Ford
yeah,
can't do these action sequences like he used to when he was younger. Of course he can't. He's 80 years old.
yeah,
Like, play it up in the film,
yeah,
make that a part of the story of
mm,
Indy feeling
yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm an old man, I'm out of time now." And,
mm,
yeah, like, just stuff like that. But anyway, I'm getting
mm.
distracted.
I did like the little, like, but yeah, I didn't really mind I did like the fact that they did at least this time, actually acknowledged his age,
Yeah, I
unlike in
definitely think
Crystal
Crystal
Skull where,
Skull definitely,
Crystal
should have yeah.
yeah,
They definitely did not do
they
that.
could have, like they definitely could have, like, done they definitely went a lot more further with his age, like, actually acknowledging it and stuff. Like, I like the scene in his, like, in Crystal Skull, for example, when he's teaching at the
Yeah,
school and his students are, like, still, like, interested in what he's saying and what he's
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, I
And then
really
you cut to
enjoyed
this
that, yeah.
movie yeah, and they're, like, they're falling
That's what I
asleep.
mean, there's very peaks and valleys in
Yeah.
this film. There's moments where I'm like,
Mm.
like going up and down with how I feel
Yeah.
about it. And I feel like with a tighter script, that was shorter
Mm.
as well, but you just focus on the key points of your story that you wanted to do, it
Yeah.
would have come out 1,000 times better, in my opinion.
Mm.
But, yeah, so, what else happened? So, yeah, so they have that bit where, in the apartment, then, like you said, where he's teaching at the school, then
Yeah, then Helena
Helena
shows
shows up,
up.
yes.
Um,
Now
yeah, yeah.
now, this is something we discussed a
Oof.
little bit before. Me and you have a differing
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
We have a differing opinion on 2 characters, actually.
Yeah,
But since we've
so
gotten to Helena, let's
yeah.
discuss Helena.
Let's discuss Helena. So I just want to point this out now. Like Phoebe Waller-Bridges,
Mhm.
I do like Phoebe Waller-Bridges as an actor and as a creative. I think she's probably one of the best people working in the industry right now. I mean, have you watched
No,
Fleabag?
I've not watched it. Is it good?
Hmm.
Ah,
It's really
cool.
good. It's like one of the best comedies from from the
Ah,
2010s
excellent.
easily.
I'll give it a
And
watch.
the 2010s had some really bad
Well, comedy
comedies.
films in general haven't
uh,
been a thing for, like, there are good comedy TV programs and other stuff, but not
mm,
films. They're not the same. They're just not made the
yeah.
same way they used to be, but which is a shame. But
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
so you
But
were
no,
yes.
she's a powerhouse actress, and I'm really looking forward to because she's still working on that Tomb Raider show for Amazon.
Oh
That's
yeah,
still
there is a
happening, which is
Tomb Raider
good.
show happening.
Mm. Yeah, for
Ah,
Amazon.
how
I
coincidental.
thought yeah, it's a live action one as well. So
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, no, I like her as an actress and stuff, but I did not like her character in this movie. I just found like particularly at the start, like I found her just a bit her character overall just a little bit unlikable
Mm.
and just a bit like I like the scene at the beginning where she's chatting with Indy and they're rebonding over the archaeology and stuff. I like that. That was sweet. But it was when she like there's just stuff that she does and says like how she like very nearly like leaves him for dead. Quite like particularly in the scene where like a
Yeah.
few times. And I'm just like, come on, man, that's your I know you've not seen him in years, but that's he's
Well,
still your
I think
godfather.
the point of her character is
Yeah.
that,
I I get what they
yeah.
were going for with it though. Like she's there, but I don't know if it was the writing or the
I think it
delivery,
could
but
it
I
could
just
be a
felt like
lot of
she
things, like I said, because
yeah.
I unlike Connor I actually quite liked Helena as a character. I liked her as
Mm,
sort of a counterpart to Indiana Jones. Like there's this new version of him that has come up, throughout
mm,
since he's been retired, as it were, and she is pretty
yeah.
much exactly the same as Indiana Jones was at the same age. Like, you see the
Mm,
scenes where she's like, objectifying men, and it's like, it's
mm.
basically what Indiana Jones did with women. It's the same
Oh,
idea
yeah.
of you taking this character that's a similar,
Mm,
has a similar kind of
yeah.
role
Oh,
to play that he did back in the day, and I think she
yeah.
contrasts really
I
well
think
with him. I know
mm,
there's a whole thing about the black market sort of selling and like leaving him for
yeah,
dead and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I definitely think, like I said,
Mm.
she's not perfect. There's definitely a lot of flaws with that character.
Oh, no. Like, I don't wanna do I'm not asking for a perfect
No, I
character,
know,
like, a
but you
perfect
just
female protagonist.
yours thing is
I'd
more that you just didn't like
mm,
her as a character. You don't think she's likable, which
yeah,
I
yeah.
I can understand that because but I personally think she's not meant to be likable to a certain extent. She's kind of meant to be a
Mm,
reflection of Indiana Jones as a person. Like
yeah.
I said, they don't really flesh this out enough because they're focusing
Mm,
on too many things at once, which I think is the problem. They should
yeah.
have I think this film would have been a lot better if they focus entirely on Indiana Jones being old and then this character,
Mm,
Helena. Um, being a reflection of what he used to be, and him saying and kind of being like, "Don't become
Yeah.
like me. Look what's happened to me. I'm now a broken old
Yeah.
man who's, like, alone in an apartment." That would
Mm.
have been a more satisfying story to me.
Yeah.
Um,
You
yeah.
could have had a good dramatic scene between the 2 of them where
They
maybe because
tried
obviously
to
her
at the
dad.
end, they tried to, they
Yeah.
really did, and I just think it was just
Mm.
like, well, you haven't really
Yeah.
your characters haven't really talked to each other that much to for it to make sense. Like I
Mm.
said, I think in isolation, the characters work fine, it's just, there is a little bit
Mm.
of there isn't almost in a weird way, even those films 2.5 hours, there just isn't time.
Yeah. Literally time.
Literally, and, if I had the Dial of Destiny corner, I'd go back and I'd get these writers to write a better script, that you put that on the poster, on the tagline in the
Yeah.
newspaper. Anyway.
I'll put that in the description, the video description.
Um, no, yeah, but I didn't mind her in
Mm.
isolation as a character. I think she had good motivation to be the person that she
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
And you see how this obsession with the dial drove her father to madness. So she's got a much more sort of
Mm.
like, well,
Yeah,
I've got
exactly.
this view of it being like these valuable artifacts are valuable to someone. I don't really care who it is as long as they pay me, kind of thing. And I think
Mm.
that's
You
fine.
could
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you could have had, like, a good emotional scene between the 2 of them where they kind of bond over, the fact that, Indy's dad was obsessed with the Holy Grail, and her dad, Basil, was obsessed with the dial
yeah,
of Archimedes, where, where they didn't really have a strong, relationship with their dads growing up.
yeah. They definitely
And, like, maybe you
have
could have
common
had
ground on that.
yeah, you could have had, like they could have maybe, like, bonded a little they could have, like, used that to develop them further, or maybe that's where Indy kind of sees like himself in her, and he's like, I've got to
Mm,
be that, I've got to step in, I've got to be the godfather to this woman, to this, to
yeah.
my goddaughter,
Yeah,
basically.
and then
Um,
that's the like I said, that's the problem with the film. It then just focuses on other characters that don't really matter.
yeah.
So, yeah, cool.
Let's, should we go on to? I will say this about Helena. She does soften up towards the end, though.
Yeah,
Like she does get a little bit
and I
more
do
like. For
and I
me, she
do
gets a little bit
wonder
more
if
like.
it's
Yeah.
intended that she was going to take over from Harrison Ford, and there was going to be more about her in a follow
Uh,
up film. But I don't think that's going to happen, considering the box
no.
office returns. We're not.
Oh yeah.
While I mean, I don't know if you know this, but in this film, Dial of Destiny is the second best opening weekend for an Indiana Jones film ever,
Oh
ever,
really?
including that it
Ever?
beats the first three. The only one that beats it is Kingdom and the Crystal Skull, and that is
Oh
including
wow.
inflation as well.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, budget for this movie though was like 3 million, 300
Yeah, and it
million.
only made,
I
like, I
think it was.
think 90 million
Yeah. Well, it's on 225.5
now,
million
yes,
so
and that
far.
is a massive failure. Even
Mm.
if it made 500 million, it would be a failure. The only way that it would have
Oh
been
yeah.
successful is if it made 1 billion.
I just don't understand, like, 300 million on Indiana Jones, like,
Yeah,
the first one film was
mhm.
like, you know,
It's almost as if,
was
these big
yeah.
films have just got way too big budgets for no reason, and most of the money gets
Yeah.
wasted,
Yeah, yeah,
and it all goes to the
yeah,
overheads for the, executives and, like, the people, the CEOs, and, like, the people who are right at the top of the companies now. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's just a money
exactly.
laundering
Mm.
business, is all I'm saying. Anyway, enough about the
Yeah, yeah.
politics of
Yeah.
filmmaking.
Yeah, let's
So
not.
after that,
Uh,
they
we get to
yes, yeah,
we
go on.
meet Teddy, so we gotta talk about well, so you like Helena, but you don't like
Well,
Teddy, and I'm the opposite to
I'm
you.
I'm I'm gonna talk about another character
Basically.
first that I also feel like was a bit of a bit of an odd inclusion was so
Mm.
after they speak to each other, Helena and, Indy go to that bar together after he's
Yeah.
retired, and he's just like, "Ah, whatever,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
retired now, I'm just gonna go drink in this bar,
Mm.
this fucking sleazy
Yeah.
bar by myself." And they obviously start to bond
Yeah.
together, and then, he reveals that he actually didn't lose the, dial, he still has it,
Yeah.
which
Mm.
she obviously then steals, but then this is when the CIA agents appear. And then obviously,
Mm.
I actually could have no idea what her name is, but
The CIA
yeah,
agent.
the black
Ho
agent. I don't know her name,
mm,
but she looked fucking awesome. I love the 70s sort of
Mars Marston. Which her name's
Marson.
Marston.
Ah, cool.
Yeah,
So,
Marston.
as much as I loved the look of that character, I think her character was pretty pointless in the film, as well.
I mean, I feel like she could have teamed up with Indy and Helena
Or
maybe, like,
make
once you find
her the
out.
goddaughter,
Mm.
like, who cares? Like, just make it a black woman,
Yeah,
like,
why not?
it feels so, like this is what I mean when this is what I think I might have talked about it before, about how you kind of see these big budget films just putting in ethnic minority characters to appeal to
mm,
mass audiences, which is fine, but put them in a
mm.
decent role. Like, don't put like she
Oh, yeah,
literally shows up, she runs around going, "You can't do this, you CIA guys. We're not supposed to kill people, even though they're the CIA. They do that shit all the time." Um,
oh, yeah.
and then she just gets killed later on when they hijack the plane, and it's
Mm,
like that's her character, and nothing
yeah,
else happens with her. It's like, why was she in it?
mm. Yeah,
Why? Why?
were you
Why
in
was
this?
she in it? Why couldn't the Nazis
Yeah,
just break in and then Indy came up with a clever way to escape? And like
yeah,
instead of it,
yeah.
yeah. And then there's also the bit as well when she's like, "They're not gonna hurt you," and it's like, "These fucking these bastards just killed 2 innocent people earlier." I know Indy didn't see
I
that,
mean,
but
we're not gonna hurt you, Dr. Jones. It's like, "You're
it's like, "You're
CIA, love."
CIA, yeah, of
Like,
course you're gonna hurt me. You're gonna fucking
of course you're
put
gonna hurt
drugs
me.
into me
Um,
and fucking drive me crazy."
mm,
Anyway, yeah.
yeah.
So
What happened so is Indy still I'm guessing Indy no longer works for the CIA now because that was a thing in the 4th one, wasn't it?
yeah, I'm pretty
So,
sure this
like
film was
yeah,
basically like the 4th film didn't happen, but it kinda did at the same time
mm,
because he does
yeah.
yeah.
What happened to him his last college? 'Cause, he's in a different college in this one.
Well, I
In this
think the
film
idea is that after Mutt died well, which spoiler alert,
yeah.
by the way, Mutt's dead, sorry. Sorry, guys, I
Oh,
know you're
yeah,
all a
yeah.
big fan of that character, Shia LaBeouf's character from
Well, I'll talk about that and what some people have been saying about that because yeah,
Yeah.
we'll leave that for well. Yeah,
Well,
so
after I assume the theory is that after obviously he died, Marion and Indy split up, so he moved to New York because obviously he's not from New York.
mm,
He's from a
no, no.
fictional place somewhere. He's from some fictional university, so I assume he moved there to get away from her. That was the idea,
Yeah.
I think. So that's why he's where he is
Mm,
now. And I think he just
yeah,
just
yeah.
changed jobs because it was like, yeah, it was easier. Because they say in there's a dialogue line where they say, "Oh, you've been with us for 10 years, and you're retiring now," and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, I fucking made your life hell," or whatever it was he said. I don't know. And then he got
Sorry, I've been here
and then he
too
got a
long.
clock and he gave it to a drifter. It was pretty cool. That bit I really liked. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just a typical thing for him to do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so then the CIA agents show up obviously to get the dial, and then there's a big exciting I really like that chase sequence in the parade. It was
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really cool.
In the
I like the
subway
fact that
and
they put the
mm.
moon landing stuff in, but then it just kind of didn't pay off though towards the end.
Yeah,
I genuinely thought that the
I
moon
think
landing was going to be involved in some way in the plot.
yeah. Well, I think it was just a setting to try for me to try and, like,
Yeah,
set the give them the
I can see that, but
65,
I really like it in films when they have
but
setup
also
and payoffs.
mm, but also try and, like, set up the villains,
Yeah,
like Voller,
yeah,
how he's been working for
because
NASA.
that's the thing that they've mentioned, not in the
Yeah.
film, but outside of it, is that Indy was staunchly against the moon landing and like the NASA and
Mm.
stuff with NASA in general because obviously NASA has Nazi scientists. That's a
Yeah.
real thing that happened as well in history. Like after the Second World
Mm.
War, multiple countries, not just the US, but multiple countries stole Nazi scientists, and it's one of the and literally the reason why we ended up on the moon in the 60s. Or well, America ended up on the moon in the
Mm.
60s is because of those Nazi
Yeah.
scientists. So Indy being against that makes sense as a character, but then
Mm.
they didn't really have
Yeah.
him say or do
It
anything
did.
related to that. But it's
Yeah.
fine. Um,
Mm. What do you think of, let's move on to Voller now
yeah,
because I think
I
he
mean, he
shows
pretty
up
much
later on.
is in the part of the plot now because obviously
Yeah.
they go that very nice
Mm.
black waiter goes up to the room and he's subjected to horrible racism.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I liked.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's like yeah, this villain's
I
a Nazi.
mhm.
He
Yeah,
holds horrible beliefs.
he's evil.
He's literally
Yeah.
evil. So let's have him
Y
just be horrible to this waiter.
let's have him just be
Yeah,
racist
I
to this
mean,
waiter because,
I
that's what the Nazis were.
I think Voller as a villain, I kind of like to an
I
extent.
do like him, yeah.
I think it helps that it's Mads Mikkelsen because he's just a generally he's a
Oh,
really good
yeah.
actor and
Like,
he's
I
a
feel
really
like
intimidating. He
mm,
seems really intimidating when
like
he wants to be.
yeah, it's like, I mean, like you say, like, yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, he's a good actor and, like, he always plays the best villains, like, his Bond villain in, Casino Royale
Oh yeah, it's weird to think that he's played both
was
a Bond
one of the
villain and
best.
an Indiana Jones villain.
Well, he was a Bond villain, an indie villain, a Marvel
Yeah.
villain because he was in the
Oh yeah,
first
he
Doctor
was. Yeah.
Strange. He wasn't technically a villain in Rogue One,
He wa-
but he was
he was
working
a
for the yeah.
stormtrooper. They're like space
What was that?
Nazis. He's a stormtrooper. They're like space Nazis.
Yeah. His character in Rogue One was where he was working on the Death Star, but he didn't
Oh
agree
no,
with
yeah,
their
he was.
plan, so he
I'm
escaped.
thinking of
Yeah,
the dude who I'm thinking of the other dude. who, like,
Mm.
tells him, like he goes what is it? He says, "A man of your talents!"
Oh, yeah,
I like
him,
that.
yeah, the guy who plays,
I'm
Talos
thinking
in,
about that, yeah.
the yeah. Um, yeah, and, he plays that guy, he was the one who made he made the hole so that they could fire it into
Oh,
the,
yes, that whole thing. Oh god,
yeah,
Muggle was terrible.
yeah.
Fucking piece of shit.
It was
I remember
oh,
watching
wow.
that in the cinema and just fucking wanting to die.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah.
I actually I actually quite liked Rogue One. Solo, though, was shit. I didn't like
I
that
didn't even
movie.
bother with Solo. I
It
was just
sucked.
like by the time
Yeah,
Solo came out, I
don't.
was kinda done with Star Wars. I was like,
I'm
I'm sick and tired of this."
I'm gonna say this now, Solo is the most boring Star Wars movie on the planet. Like, it's more boring than Attack of the Clones. I don't know how that's even
Mate, Attack
possible.
of the Clones is so bad. That's a bold statement to make. I think Attack of the Clones is not
It's
only one of the worst Star Wars films, but one of the worst films ever made. But anyway, yeah,
mm, I just think
we're
it's really
getting
boring.
distracted. Vola. Yes,
Yeah. But Volo's a good villain.
he's a Nazi,
Um,
so I immediately hate him. So he's a great villain.
yeah. I liked how, I loved him as a bad guy because he was, he was engaging, I liked his motive to go back in time and actually
Yeah,
kill Hitler so he could take his
once
place.
again, if that was built up, like,
Um,
maybe because the
mm,
like, maybe if Indy had, like, found, like, "Oh my god, he's got all these Nazi uniforms. Is he bringing back the Nazis?" kinda thing like that. And then, of course, he'd
yeah,
be like, "No, Indy, I'm going back in time to kill Hitler and become Hitler," or whatever. Yeah, or whatever.
mm,
I like that idea of I think it is a really interesting
yeah,
motivation for him to be like, "I'm
mm,
gonna save I'm gonna save the Nazis by killing the
yeah,
big Nazi." And learning from his mistakes. Like, yeah,
mm,
I like that as a motivation for a villain, and I
yeah,
just wish he maybe did a little bit more like threatening
mm,
things. Like you think about
yeah,
like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, with that not
Belloc,
just
yeah,
Belloc, but the
mm.
glasses Nazi.
Yeah, the glasses Nazis
He's
and
like
stuff. Yeah,
so
there were
threatening.
mm,
I mean,
yeah, he is threatening, yeah,
Spielberg's really good at making the Nazis in those films comical, but every now and again
mm,
he's like, "No, let's remember that these guys are also horrible." So yeah,
yeah,
and
oh, yeah,
I think the other side CIA Nazi characters, I think it was really good
mm,
is like they're very clearly like from very specific backgrounds that have led them to become Nazis. Like, you've got the
yeah,
guy who's, like, got that southern accent, and it's like, "Oh, okay, so he's, like, from
yeah,
a South state," but they didn't, like, specify
mm,
it, they didn't need to, so that bit I liked. It was just like, you can
yeah,
draw the conclusions, and it's no wonder the black
mm,
agent didn't like any of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
um but yeah, but I did like, yeah, I liked how, like, slimy and kind of just generally evil. I love the line where he's talking to the black waiter,
Mm.
and he just goes to me and goes, I think is that's something he says. I can't remember the exact line, but something
He says,
like,
like, "Where are you
did you
from?"
no, it's the one line about the victory where he's like, are you
Oh,
enjoying your
yeah.
victory, or did you
Yeah.
enjoy?
"You
Yeah,
enjoying your
that's such a
victory?"
very
Like,
like, yeah,
as if like yeah,
that and
great, cool. Wow, what a
yeah,
fucking scumbag. Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
and it's like it's just that's a very kind of like, fuck you kind of line.
It's yeah,
Like,
like I think that's what
yeah.
makes him engaging. I just wish Indy punched him a few more times.
Hmm. I wish him and Indy had a fight, like an actual proper fight, because they don't really have a fight in
Well,
this,
I
do
mean,
they?
Indy doesn't really fight the main villain usually,
Hmm.
like as in a fist
Not
fight,
usually, I guess.
except
No.
for probably Molaron.
Which one
Molaron's
was that? Oh
from
yeah,
Temple of Doom. He does
Temple
have
of
a
Doom.
fight with him on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
bridge when they're
Hmm.
hanging on the bridge. But apart
Yeah.
from that, he doesn't usually fight them, so I'm okay with that. I
Hmm.
just wish Indiana Jones had more
Yeah.
fights, like which I know Harrison
Yeah.
Ford can't do because he's old, but play it up. Like I
Yeah.
said, this is what I mean about playing it up. Play up his age.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe he's got like a walking stick and like he has to use that or like I'm just saying like little fun
Yeah.
things like that would have made the film better. Or have Phoebe
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call her Helena because I never remember her full name. Um,
Phoebe
that's
Waller
it.
Bridge.
Um,
Hmm.
Even have Helena just fight him. Fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
Like
Why not?
just more.
Actually, would be good.
I love those moments in the Indiana Jones films when he has to fight a
Hmm.
big dude. And like, there's like the bit where
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh god, this is just so tough," and he has to like get up and like keep
Hmm.
fighting. That's the stuff we love about
Yeah.
Indiana Jones. He's plucky,
Hmm.
he's not he tries his hardest and he always comes out on top because he fights his hardest. And that's what we love about him.
Yeah.
He's
He
a
fights
plucky
his hardest.
adventurer.
He he fights his hardest. Yeah. So talking about let's talk about the action sequence, the chase scene in
Oh
New
yeah,
York.
I loved it a
Yeah.
lot. I loved it.
It was really good. It was like, there was good tension in there. There was really engaging. I did like the fact that Indy's riding a horse in the
Yeah, that was
subway.
really cool. I like
I
that.
just
That was
thought
a
that was
really it
like,
genuinely was
yeah.
like a really cool sequence. I like
Yeah. I loved how Indy also, like, raced up to the police officer and was like, "Quick, you gotta help
yeah.
me." And it's like an old man would in
Yeah.
that situation
I
because, like,
I
if you
generally thought, when I was
because
watching that scene, I thought he was gonna be like, "Oh, go up to the police officer, like, you gotta help me." And then, like, he was gonna be like, "Oh, but we're with the CIA," kind of thing like that. And he was gonna like, "Oh, fuck." And
yeah.
then he was gonna, like, punch him and then, like, get on the
"Ah,
horse, get
shit."
on the horse and, like, ride off.
Yeah, get on the
It
horse.
was great, it was great. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it. It was just a little fun action
yeah.
sequence and, like, a
Mhm.
little set piece. It
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of the
Mm,
one from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well. When
mm.
Mutt and Indy have
Yeah.
to escape from the diner and then, like, through the streets of, like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that one,
that's a
yeah.
really good sequence as well.
That was good. Yeah. What did you think of the action sequences in general in this? Did you think
Mm,
James
I
Mangold did a good
think
job directing them, or
I think I'm gonna kinda say 2 things here, both one thing that's kind of
Yeah.
kind and one thing that's not very kind.
Yeah, sure, it's fine,
The
don't worry
kind
about it.
thing is that ultimately I do feel that James Mangold probably got shafted by the studio a little bit because I do think a lot of these
Mm.
action scenes are really long, and
Yeah.
I think that's a general problem. Like I said, I've said it already in this that the length of
Mm.
the film is a serious problem for me, where it's like it's this
Yeah.
2.5 hour film where it just it keeps going and going, and like these action sequences going for so long, and you are a bit like,
Mm.
can we just stop now? Like
Yeah.
I like a
Yeah,
good action sequence in a film, but when there's a bit when you're like, "Ugh, this is just getting a bit long now," you do kind of
yeah, yeah.
it gets frustrating, and you're just like, "Ah, just
Mm.
move on, please, just anything else. I just wanna see something else besides
Mm.
this action sequence." But
Yeah.
I also think as well, and this is what I mean about the not kind thing, that I don't think there's many directors who can stand up to Steven Spielberg.
Oh, I think I mean,
Like,
I think
he's
that's I wouldn't say I wouldn't say it's an unkind
I
thing.
just but when I
Spielberg's one
mean
of
that,
the, like,
I mean is in I don't
yeah.
wanna make it seem as if that I don't think James Mangold is untalented because I love Logan. That's a
Oh,
great
no,
film,
he's a great filmmaker.
but I think
Mm.
he works better when things are stripped down. I think he
Yeah.
when it's very simple and straightforward, I think that's when he works his best. I don't think he's really good at these big actiony stuff. I think that's something
Mm.
Spielberg really excels at, and I think he's very good
Yeah.
at spectacle. And I think a lot of
Mm.
filmmakers, there's very
Yeah.
few filmmakers I think that are actually really good at that. I think most filmmakers
Yeah.
work best when they do work in small scale. Um,
Yeah.
so I think overall the action sequences are okay for a bit, and then I get a little bit tired of them.
I For me, I think the action sequences, they're good, like, they're fun and stuff, but they're just, I was thinking about this, and they're just missing
Yeah,
something, and I
it's
think the
that
thing
magic.
is the thing
It's like I said, it's that
yeah.
Spielberg magic. You know.
Yeah, because I think the thing with, James Mangold is, I was thinking about this, and I think a lot of it, because the comparison I'm gonna make here is because he directed,
Yes.
Logan, and he also directed, The Wolverine, the one that was him in
Oh yeah,
Japan.
that film.
Um, mm, um, and I think, like, with The Wolverine, that movie was a PG-13, Logan was rated R, and I feel like James Mangold is a filmmaker that kind of works his best when he's doing action sequences, when in an R-rated setting,
Possibly, yeah.
because when he's able to, like, yeah, because in Logan and because with The Wolverine, again, the action sequences in The Wolverine, they're good, but they do there's a bit, like, in fact, in terms of, like, the impact they make, it's not very, they don't really have a lot of impact. But when you watch Logan, because Logan's, like, it's R rated, he can do whatever the hell he wants, go crazy, like, he can do whatever he can have, like, gore and blood, whatever, and they're giving him that freedom to, like, just go for it. Um, it works well, and it makes a really great, like, there's a big impact with, like, they're engaging, and they're enjoyable, but they do have that big kind of, they make an impact on you, those action sequences in Logan. Even when it gets quite comic booky at the end with the kids using their powers to, like, to kill the soldiers, like one of them traps them in, like, trees or something like
Mhm.
that. But even then, like, they still have a good impact on you because of the R rating and stuff, and because James Mangold is able to pretty much go, do whatever he
I
wants
think
with that R
I
rating,
think
compared to, like, a PG-13, where I think Spielberg was able to, like, have an impact with his action sequences in a, PG-13 kind of
I think
setting.
as well that the big thing that's a difference between then and now is the
mm,
like, an Indiana Jones set piece back in the day wouldn't have had CGI, so you would have had to rely on physical stuff.
yeah,
So that means you
mm,
got actors that have to be in those scenarios physically there, whereas in now you can tell that a lot of it is CGI. And while I do understand that
mm,
that's safer and
yeah,
easier,
health and safety
I can
reasons.
understand.
Mhm.
It just doesn't compare to those old school. I mean, you look at Mad Max Fury Road. Like that's a
Yeah,
recent film which relied much more on practical
practical
effects
effects,
and
yeah,
and practical action sequences that require timing and
mm,
coordination and a lot of effort put into them basically. And
yeah,
just man, those action sequences are incredible. You compare it to like
yeah,
modern day action scenes where it's mostly just fucking
mm,
Thanos flying around like shooting lasers. It's just you just look at it and you're
yeah.
like, I don't know what's going on, and my brain's confused. um
Yeah. Well, they did use I mean, Mad Max Fury Road did have CGI, but
yeah,
the way
yeah,
they did
yeah,
it was
of
that
course it did.
they only used it, like, a minimal amount, and they used it mainly to enhance the
Yeah, it's a
practical effect.
tool. It's
So it was basically just used as, like, life support for
yeah,
the
it's a
practical effects, and I feel like most more films should do that. Like, I
but
feel like I was spoiled about this beforehand, but we're relying so much on CG now that it's
was
just
it's a
we need to bring practical
Yeah,
effects
it's
back
bringing it's
big
about
time.
automating the process really, isn't it? It's about making films easy to make so that they don't have to spend more money on the actual filmmaking process.
Yeah.
It's about that really more than anything. And I'm sure James
Yeah.
Mangold probably didn't want to do that, but he made this
Mm.
film with Disney, and Disney's just gonna would have immediately been like, "No, absolutely not." Like
Mm.
any ideas you've got about physical action scenes are not happening, especially with Harrison Ford being 80. We're just not doing it.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that that's particularly, like I said, this is what I mean when I say I don't think it's very fair to pin it all on him as a director.
Oh,
I
no, like
really don't.
I like James Mangold's a great filmmaker. Like he's directed. I'll say this about him as well. Like I'm really looking for. I'm glad that he's gotten another chance to make his mark on the Star Wars franchise because he's doing that because originally he was supposed to do the Boba Fett
Mm,
spin-off movie and then Solo tanked and so they cancelled it. But now he's back doing a is it First Order? I think it is
I have no
First
idea.
Order.
I don't
Let
look
me
up
just
anything
quickly
Star Wars related anymore because I'm just sick and tired of it. So
yeah. But I'm looking forward to his Star Wars movie, which I'm just trying to look up
I'll
now.
give it a watch if it's good.
Well, Dawn of the Jedi. It's about the Dawn of the Jedi and
Oh,
stuff.
so it's like
So
in
it's
the
like
old
it's set at the
Republic.
very it's basically the very start of the Star Wars universe. Like it's like the start of the Jedi, which I'm looking forward to because it's the only Star Wars movie I'm looking forward to be honest. I just pray to God it doesn't get cancelled like
We'll
a
just
lot of
see
other
what
Star Wars
happens. Yeah, this is the
projects.
thing. You can't rely on it
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. We'll talk about Catherine Kennedy
Kathleen
later
Kennedy.
on. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but like he, why do you think Spiel? What actually? One thing I want to ask: why do you think Spielberg didn't come back in the end?
because
Because I
he's
feel
just
like,
sick and tired of it. Like, what you think about
yeah,
Spielberg, like and a lot, and I don't even think it's just Spielberg. I think it's most older directors, right? Back in the
mm,
day, like in the 70s and 80s, they were given the opportunity to make films, like through their own creative vision, because obviously Hollywood was
yeah,
going through a really tumultuous time during that period where they were losing money way too quickly. No one was coming
mm,
to the cinema, and so they literally, out of desperation, went, "All right, just find me a bunch of young filmmakers. We'll throw money at them, and they'll just make films." And that's how many filmmakers
mm,
we think about today as being like the legendary filmmakers all got their start. And
yeah,
I think nowadays that because of the way in which these companies are run now, which is much more based on like things like analytics, like market
yeah,
research and things like that, they're
yeah,
not going to want to go in there
mm,
because every time they try to make any slight decision, there's going to be someone coming around to them going, "Oh, we focus tested this. It turns out that people don't like this anymore, so you can't put it in,
yeah,
and we think you should put this in instead."
mm,
So I can
yeah,
imagine if you're like, in your mid 60s to late 70s late 70s, which is where most of these directors are now,
mm,
and just going, fuck that.
yeah,
I'm not having some
mm,
fucking pencil pusher come up to me and just tell me what to do. I can see them
yeah,
just feeling that way. I think that's why Steven
mm,
Spielberg didn't want to do it. Also, I think he was kind of just done with Indiana Jones even before
yeah.
making the Kingdom of the
Like
Crystal Skull. He only did it because George Lucas asked him and they're friends. I genuinely think that's what it is.
yeah. I would have, yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have seen an indie movie where it's just Spielberg completely on his own, like without George. Like, there's no George involved.
George Lucas's ideas
Um,
for Indiana Jones are always, like, so interesting.
mm,
The haunted house one.
the tr-
Oh, boy.
oh
That's
my
like
god,
and
yeah,
then
the haunted house
the
one.
giant ants. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Giant Ants.
ugh."
Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone, which is an
Yeah,
actual
it's a
book that
great
was written.
book.
um, and yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is a shame that
Yeah,
Spielberg didn't
I
come
think we've
back,
gotten
but
off track as
oh,
well. Let's, let's talk about
yeah,
this new
let's get back.
film that came out, Dial of
Yeah.
Destiny.
Um, so yeah,
Let's
we have the
turn
action
back the
sequence.
dial. We'll go through the
Yeah, let's turn up the
go
dial.
back in time now, Connor, okay?
Yeah, we'll go back
So,
in time.
we
We'll go
now
back
just
in
got
time.
up to the bit where we were talking about the chase scene. What happened after that?
Hmm.
Oh, that's when Salah
He gets
appears.
framed.
Yeah, he gets framed and
Yeah,
Salah
well,
appears, yeah.
framed for murder, which didn't really get cleared
No.
up at the end, did
Once
it?
again, it
I
was
think
another
I
plot
like.
point that was just
Mm,
abandoned. Great,
yeah,
I love that.
I feel like maybe they just you could say that maybe Helena, because he actually keeps the dial at the end of
Yeah.
this. That's the thing. Like, he doesn't actually. It's not like the end of the other ones where he loses it at the end. Like, he actually gets to keep it. So maybe Helena
Yeah,
showed it
well,
to
that's
him,
sort of
explained
like his
everything to
reward, isn't
him,
it,
squashed it.
for all of his
Yeah.
adventures. He actually gets to keep something for
Mm,
a change instead of losing it at the end.
mm. Hmm. But yeah, so we get Salah. So Salah, it was good seeing Salah again. I liked how Salah actually lives in New York now. And the fact that because Salah is basically Indiana Jones's like best
Oh,
friend.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like,
Well,
so the
he's the
fact that
character we've seen the most besides
mm,
Indiana Jones in these films.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So yeah, I like
mm,
the little line where he said like, "Oh, yeah, we can't possibly thank India enough for getting us out of Egypt during the war and
yeah,
stuff." And it's like, because I was wondering why
mm,
Salah was in New York. I was like, why is a taxi driver? And I was like, okay, India helped him get out
yeah,
of his country being destroyed by Nazis because
yeah,
that's fair enough. I like that. It was a
yeah,
nice little detail.
yeah. I did like the fact that Salah was like, "I've brought my passport with me. I can help you."
And it's
And
like,
I was
nah.
like, "Come on, Indy. Let, come on, Indy. Let Salah join. Come on, give Johnny Rhys Davis some more to
I
do."
think they could only put him in brownface for so long
Yeah,
before
yeah,
people
that's
would
probably
get
true.
like really angry.
But it was good to, like, it's the last indie movie, so it was good to see Salah like one more time, because he was supposed to be in well, he was offered a cameo in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for the wedding scene, but he rejected it because he was like, "Well, I'm not. If I'm just a cameo, I'm not gonna have much to do."
Yeah,
So,
I think he was
um,
just like, "Nah, I'm not doing that."
he read the script and he was like, "Aliens, fuck
Yeah,
that."
maybe he did think that. I don't know. I don't know.
I did Lord of the Rings, damn
He
it.
did. He was Gimli, son of Gloin.
Yeah,
We love him.
Gimli, son of Gloin, son of Gloin. But yeah, no, it was good seeing Salah again, though. And even it
I
wasn't
mean,
very,
yeah, it was
at the
just nice for
beginning,
him
and
to
then he reappears at the
help
end.
out, and then
Hmm. They'll help him out one more time. He goes get Indy's hat and his whip, which isn't actually in the movie that
do
much,
you
to
know
be
what's the
honest.
thing
Like,
that I didn't realize until partway through the film was I was like, "Where's his
hmm,
revolver?" I remember I just thought that I was like, "Where's his
yeah,
gun?
true.
He's got a gun as well. Does he not
Yeah,
shoot people now?"
yeah,
"Oh, I'm pacifist
yeah.
now."
Like, so I don't. Yeah, why doesn't he have a gun in this? Like, maybe he
I don't
lost it or
know.
something. Maybe
I
he
don't
lost his
know, man.
license. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, and then there's that scene where he's like, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones," and then the car nearly runs him
Yeah.
over, which I was like, that's kind of funny, but at the same time,
Do
I
you know
felt like
that's
that could have
another
been
thing
good.
about this film? I think a
Yeah,
lot of the humor didn't land for me. There were very
yeah,
obvious
yeah, I get that.
jokes they were going for, and I
Mm,
just didn't think it had that, that little punch to it
yeah,
that makes an Indiana
mm,
Jones film a little bit funny at times, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so he gets on a plane and he goes to Morocco.
Hotel, yeah, the hotel in
La
Rockall, and
Al
uh,
Antique, that's what it's called, La Antique, Al Antique,
yeah, Atlantis. That's it. No, I'm
the
joking.
Atlantis. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Oh yeah, that was a game,
It
wasn't
was,
it?
yeah. I'm
The
gonna talk
Atlantis.
more
Yeah,
about it at the end of the podcast. Don't you worry.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, sure. Why not? May
Okay.
as well. Um, let's see. So yeah, so we get to where she's doing the auction for the black
Now,
market. Um,
I have to
and we got
say this is my
yeah.
favorite scene in the film for a bunch of reasons.
Oh yeah, same.
Um,
Yeah.
I really like the bit when he goes into the club and he goes up the
Mm,
elevator. There's that one bit where like the shadows from like the, like the cross sections on the windows, like go over Indy's face. And I was like, "Oh, that's like the
Yeah.
classic noir lighting they use all they I love that so much. I love that in films in
Mm.
general, but I think it's a good thing that they do in Indiana Jones every now and again, that whole, where they like they black out the
Mm.
face in shadow, but the eyes are visible. I love that. I love that. It's
Yeah.
so atmospheric and just looks so cool.
Mm. It is, yeah.
Uh,
It's
and
very,
yeah, and that
very
whole
cool
bit
looking
had,
shot, yeah.
a nice little atmosphere to it. I liked the bit inside.
Mm.
It was quirky, it was fun. It
Yeah.
had a little bit of humor to it, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But then obviously we
Yeah,
get
like a
introduced to the worst
funny joke.
character in the film, Teddy.
Oh, I like
Now,
Teddy, man. I thought he was an
I
alright
want you
character.
to defend this.
Teddy. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just thought Teddy was, all right. Like, I didn't like. I wasn't like, oh, he was the best character in the
Yeah,
movie. But for what was essentially just a short round,
he's no show around.
um, like he's no short round, obviously. But overall, I thought he was a likable enough character, and again, maybe it's the fact I didn't like Helena very much that
That's why your
maybe I
hair
was like,
that's why your
yeah,
ire was directed. I see.
yeah. But I always, and it's obviously seeing him bond with Indy over the film, which, well, not bond with
Yeah,
Indy, but get
you
to know
kinda
Indy,
hit
and
it, you kinda hitting
uh,
my main problem with this film, which is, with this
mm,
character is that you've got this scene here where it's establishing he's like, pretending to fly a plane. And I was like,
yeah,
"Oh, okay, so this kid wants to be a pilot." He maybe might mention that. Maybe his
mm,
dad was a pilot, or like,
yeah,
like there's something about this character that has a motivation
mm,
for him wanting to be a pilot. But no, no,
yeah,
it's not mentioned at all. I know nothing about this character. I know nothing
mm,
about what makes him the person that he is. Um, he just shows up in the film literally for that one scene near the end of the film where he flies a plane. And I hate
mm,
that. I hate it so much.
mm,
I think it's such a lazy way to write a character. And then
mm,
then just to kind of skip forward a little bit as well, I really hated the scene where he got
yeah,
kidnapped. And Indy's like, "Oh my god,
he,
Teddy's
mm,
been kidnapped," and like all this and this. And then 2 seconds later, Indy's like, "Ah, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it." And then they don't even
mm,
fucking do anything. He don't save him. He shows up a bit later to jump on the redneck guy. Like,
yeah,
it's
no,
so easy. If there's a point in your script when you're like, "If I literally just, like, remove this and write something else that happens, and the film
mm,
basically is unchanged," that's not a character. And I think
yeah,
that's my problem with Teddy. I just don't feel anything,
yeah,
from this character because he doesn't have a character.
mm.
Less so than any of the others. Antonio Banderas had more character than this guy.
I mean, that's Antonio Banderas, though.
Yeah,
He is
I
a
mean,
great,
alright, I definitely don't think it's anything to do with the
well,
kid, by the way. The actor,
yeah,
I'm not sure what his name is, but, I think he did
mm,
fine with the material he was given.
what he was given,
But
yeah,
I just think whoever
mm,
wrote that character in, needs to fucking go to school, uh, for script writing and not have characters like that, which are boring
yeah,
and uninteresting.
mm,
But
yeah.
yeah,
University of York, mate. Yeah, go there, learn script
that's the
writing
end of
there.
my Teddy hate rant. I'll try and
Mm.
not talk about
Uh,
him anymore.
I liked when he comes into to the actual auction, and he's trying to convince Helena, "Go give me back this dial, I need it."
Give me this
And having the
fucking
bit of back
dial
and
that you
forth.
stole from me.
And then Vola comes
He's like,
in, and
"Actually, it's my
Indy just,
dial.
yeah. I love how, like, Indy looks at him and goes, "You,"
I
and
know
he like he
you.
recognize,
You're a
yeah,
fucking Nazi."
yeah. Vola's like, "Oh, have like Vola obviously knows who Indy
Yeah, he
is because
tries to play it
he
off
read his
like,
yeah, he
have we
tries to be
met
like, he's trying
before?"
to, like, again, he's like this slimy kind of thing where he's like, "Oh, have we
And
met
it's like, "Oh,
before? I don't
you
think we've met."
shit.
I love how, like, Indy, like, when Indy goes, "Tell me, you still a Nazi?" And then Helen just looks at him like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Dude, this dude's a Nazi. And it's like, "Oh, I
She's like,
studied
"Huh?"
the University of Alabama." Of course he's
Mm,
from Alabama.
mm. I like the little kind of like back and forth him and Vola have where Vola's just like, "You should
I
stay in New York. You should have stayed out of
Yeah,
Poland."
I think if, like I said, this bit was like it was maybe that's when Indy started to, like, question, like, the stuff around the moon landing, and he was like, "Oh my god, NASA's been
Yeah.
using Nazis? Oh my god, fuck
Mm,
that." And, like, if that was then repurposed later in the film, I would have loved it even more, but, oh well, it doesn't matter.
mm.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
so then all hell breaks loose at this club. There's
Yeah, it does, yeah,
guns, there's Indiana Jones tries to whip people with his whip, and he's like, "Get
yeah, the whip
fucking back."
oh, yeah, that's I love that. I do love that scene where he's like, "Get back!" everyone points the gun at him, and he's like,
Do you know what that
"Shit."
reminded me of? You know the bit when they all
Yeah.
pointed their guns at him and shot him? Have you ever seen that filter
Mm.
you can get where it's like you put it over a video and it's like a bunch of hands come out with guns to like it really
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
reminded
yeah,
me of
that
that, and
one.
it kinda made me laugh because I was like, "That's so dumb."
Yeah.
And then he just dies underneath
Mm.
the table, and then everybody forgets to use their guns, but that's okay, whatever.
Yeah. Mm. And then there's this big brawl in the thing, and they're all
Yeah, I
chasing
liked it,
after
and
and
then
it leads to that big the tuk
now
tuks. Or is it
the
tuk
tuk
tuk or
tuks.
tuk tuks?
Was I right?
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I wanted to bring up with this bit. So when Indy goes into that
Mm.
nightclub, it's night, and then he
Yeah.
comes out and it's like the middle of the day.
Yeah, yeah,
That
that's true, actually, yeah, I was wondering
really
that as
weirded
well.
me out. I was like, how long was he in there for? Because there wasn't even a clue to
Like,
it being like, oh, dawn's about to break or anything like that. Like I could understand if they did that, but
well,
it was just I was like, too much time has
we
passed between these two
I feel like,
shots.
maybe because maybe it's a hotel, so maybe he booked a room or something, and he just stayed
Maybe,
the
but
night
I
in
would
the
have liked
hotel
to have
room and
seen
then
that.
come back
I'd have
down.
liked to have seen that.
But,
I
yeah, I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know, that's
Actually, there's
that bit just made me go like, "What?"
mm, yeah. What do you think of the, flashback scene when he's on the plane, he flashes back to when
Oh, yeah,
Basil's
he does.
going
Yeah, they have that whole bit.
nuts?
I like that because,
Yeah,
like I said, that connected
yeah,
Helena and Indy more, and like I said, there's a
mm,
bit of the script, you know what I mean? That this is from a previous script where it was just
yeah,
about these 2, where that was a more consistent thread that they were working
yeah,
on, and it works, it really does, but it's just mired
mm,
by all this other stuff that goes on around it.
yeah. What do you think of Toby Jones in this? I thought he was pretty good
Yeah.
as Basil. He's Toby
Yeah,
Jones,
his
so he's
Toby
good in
Jones is
everything he
good.
does.
He played
Yeah,
a doddering old Britishman, and,
mm,
he is one, I assume. So,
yeah.
they're
Oh,
perfect. It's
yeah,
perfect casting.
yeah.
Oh,
But what do you think of the? Because obviously he's de-aged in that
is
scene
he?
as well, but yeah, Harrison Ford is like, but I think
Oh,
because
Harrison
'cause
Ford.
obviously the
I thought you meant
Harrison
Toby
Ford's
Jones. I was
de-aged.
like, is he?
Yeah,
That
I
was it.
think yeah, it looks a lot better in that scene than it does
Well, I
the,
think that's because he's just
opening
closer to the
sequence.
actual age that he
He's
is.
just
Yeah,
yeah, because 'cause they're only taking, like, a couple of years off
yeah.
his face, compared to, like, the opening sequence where they're taking lots of years off his
I
face.
don't fucking know, man. It's a weird thing to think about.
Uh,
De-aging, just yeah.
yeah, Adrian, just not do
Just
it. Let's
don't
end
do
this.
it. So
Don't do the
so
AJ. Don't de-age me.
Helena and Indy come out of the club obviously after
Yeah,
Vola manages to get the half of the dial that they've got off of
yeah.
Teddy.
Plays Scott, yeah.
And then it turns out that Helena was almost married to a gangster, a Moroccan
Mm,
gangster,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that then initiates a chase sequence that goes on for quite a while.
mm, yeah. I mean, the Tuk Tuks were
I
actually quite
liked it.
good
I
though,
liked the
like that
idea of
yeah.
it. Like I said, it
Yeah, it
just
was
went on for
fun.
too long. Same thing in
Yeah.
Ulcers.
I do like I do like that scene where, like, Indy's Tuk Tuk nearly, crashes into a car, so he jumps into Helena
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Teddy's.
I like little bits like
It's like,
that were
"What?"
really enjoyable. Like it wasn't a bad sequence at all.
Hmm.
it had the
It
elements
wasn't bad, no.
it had the elements
It had
in
the
there that it
elements there,
needed. It just needed to
it
be fucking
it just
constrained.
shorter.
Constrained. The
It
the 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 words
constrained,
to use
shorter.
for this film would have been restraint. Restraint could
Mm.
have gone a long way with this film instead of relying on these big, big CGI, all this stuff, and
Yeah.
these big chase sequences. If it just narrowed it down a little bit and went, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to
Mm.
keep it simple, and we're just going to do the
Yeah.
things that are necessary for this film to make it a good film. It would have been better. But I
Yeah.
think that's a problem with all films, not just Indiana Jones. But anyway, yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. So but I mean, it is a fun sequence though, like, it's a good chase. And, I like how, like, when they're trying to get the dial back from Vola, Harrison Ford just grabbed and he's like, "Come on, give me the
yeah,
dial.
give it back. It's
Just
fine.
give it
It's
back."
mine. Yeah,
Yeah. And then,
he missed an opportunity to punch him
yeah.
there, which he should have done.
Yeah, you should have done that. He does punch Vola at the start though, in the
Oh, I
opening
love that. I love
sequence.
that bit. He puts. I don't get why he
Yeah,
puts his hat over him, but I love the fact that
yeah.
he just punched him.
I'm not too
Whatever.
sure.
Who cares?
Um, but yeah, so, you do have that scene. It is a good scene. I just again, like, it lacks that kind of impact that Spielberg was able to make with these
Yeah,
action sequences.
I think it
Like
does. Yeah,
mm,
definitely the length gets into it too much, where it just feels
yeah,
stretched out, and you do feel a bit
yeah,
like
it's like
come on, man. But
it's like, "Wrap this up."
Vola manages to escape with the half of the dial, so they're like, well,
Mm,
what the fuck do we do
yeah.
now? And then they,
So
yeah,
yeah, and Indy, he decides we gotta go see my friend from Antonio Banderas,
we're gonna go back to the crash site,
we
and
can
we
get us a
can
boat.
fucking find the other half.
Yeah, it can help us find the other
Yeah.
half, yeah. So he goes up to there, and Antonio Banderas, I mean, he's good in everything he's in, though, Antonio Banderas. I'm just trying to find his character's name.
Miguel.
Uh,
I don't know. No.
Ronaldo, that's it, Ronaldo.
That's almost as bad as, Miguel.
Uh, but yeah, Ronaldo, but, Indiana Jones has always been I'm surprised it took Antonio Banderas this long to be put into an Indiana Jones movie, because you would have thought that would have happened a few years ago.
What, in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Probably, yeah, I feel like,
Yeah,
Kingdom of
but who
Crystal
would he
Skull,
have
something like
played?
that.
Because there's no Spanish people in that.
Don't know. Well, I don't know, someone.
He could have
A
played a
character.
Spanish Russian.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I thought he was playing a villain at first, like, when he got announced, like, I might have read that wrong, though. Oh, no, oh, yeah, it says here, Banderas claimed that his character was not a villain. Ah, okay. A good guy.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
yeah, he got
Um,
fucking killed by the bad guy. I mean, you
yeah, yeah,
can't
he
get
got
more.
killed, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, what did you think of the whole
Mm.
eel sequence?
Oh, the
Yeah.
eels. I thought it was, I mean, the snake joke about it was funny. I
Well,
guess
I
it didn't
suppose that
include
was
his
the
spear
idea,
of
wasn't
snakes
it? Is that
anymore.
Indy's, like, also scared of eels because
Yeah,
they remind him of snakes, but it's like,
yeah. But
I get what you're doing,
but they wouldn't
but,
but, like, I mean, they weren't a big I don't know, there's something about eels that just does that sort of lacks the threat of snakes. Like,
well,
eels don't really
I think
like
it's because, when you think of snakes, you think of venomous snakes, and when you think of
mm,
eels, you think of, well, eels. Like, maybe electric
yeah,
eels. But, like,
mm,
I don't really think that they're
yeah,
as threatening. They just wanted to do an underwater sequence, and they were like, "Oh, well, put a thing
yeah,
here." But Indiana Jones doesn't do anything clever to get out of that situation. He just sort of flails around until he gets out of it. Uh,
yeah, yeah, it was hard to make out what was going on in that sequence a little bit, I think, because of the lighting
yeah,
and
the
stuff,
lighting was a bit weird in that
yeah,
sequence. Also as well, I
yeah,
thought the whole 3 minutes, the 3-minute diving sequence thing, I thought that was gonna play into it a lot more. There was gonna be, like, maybe they got snagged on something. It's like, "Oh my god, no. We need to get out of here quickly," like,
yeah,
kind of thing like that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just it was an alright sequence. It got them what they needed to get, and
the
yeah,
job done,
and
yeah.
then they came back up,
Yeah, it was
and
fine.
Vola was there.
And then Vola's there,
They have
his
a nice little
henchman's there,
sequence where they
one
sort
of
of play around with Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones is like, "Oh, I'm not gonna tell you a goddamn thing because I have integrity," and then Helen is like,
the
"Well, I'll tell you for the
yeah,
right price," but then obviously that's a bluff, and
yeah, she's, like, bluffing so he can light the dynamite and it can blow up. Blow up the
yeah.
boat anyway.
I really like
But
the
yeah,
bit where she's like, "Woo, yeah, wasn't that amazing?" And then Indy's like, "My fucking friend just died." And I was like,
yeah,
"Whoa,
yeah, that scene.
damn."
Yeah.
That was
Well,
harsh.
yeah, it was actually there's one scene from the boat we forgot to mention. That's the scene where he tells her about, you know, what happened to his son.
Yeah, that does happen on that. Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that was later, sorry,
yeah,
yeah. No, 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 yeah, you are right.
yeah.
Where it talks
Let's
about
so
Mutt
yeah,
dying
let's
in the, I assume, the Vietnam
yeah.
War.
It is Vietnam War, yeah, it was the Vietnam one.
Or Korea?
Um,
'Cause that would have also could have
and
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was Vietnam. I've got the Wikipedia one up here right now, and it's
Wow,
Vietnam.
Vietnam War, eh?
Yeah, yeah, because that happened in the Vietnam
Well,
War,
the Vietnam War was
um,
1960
55.
55.
I think it was
Was the
it says
Korean
here,
War?
the Vietnam War, was conflict of Vietnam, from November 1st November 1955
Fall of
to
Saigon.
30th of April,
Yeah, fall of Saigon.
1975.
But I don't think
Yeah,
US deployment of troops wasn't until the '60s, I don't think,
yeah, probably not,
'cause
no.
that's
Well, he didn't even he enlisted though, that Indy even says he
well
enlisted to piss
well,
me
yeah,
off.
because that was a big thing to do with the
Yeah,
Vietnam War at the time, was the whole, like, "Oh,
mm,
if you
yeah,
enlist in the war, you'll be, we can do all these things for you," and then obviously that then led to
mm,
the, people feeling, like the protests and people going up, protesting the enlistment and stuff, yeah.
mm,
Oh, here we go,
yeah,
it's Kennedy's escalation. So that was like in
alright,
61 was when Kennedy escalated the wars, and
alright,
then that came into be the Bay of Pigs invasion and stuff like that. Yeah, 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 I remember my Vietnam War now. I did it in sixth form.
mm,
That was a long time ago.
yeah. So yeah, I did. We have that scene where she asks him, if you could go back in time, what would you do?
Top Marshal.
And
Top
there's that
Marshal
kind of
on the
quiet
list.
moment where where he's, he
Yeah,
doesn't really
it was a good
say it
sequence,
first, and
honestly.
then it's a good
Harrison
sequence, yeah,
Ford really was like, yeah, shit,
giving it
trying
all,
trying to
yeah, and you could really feel Indy's pain and his kind of the suffering that he's gone through the past
Which,
10
was
years.
a bit of a red herring, to be honest with you. I thought that that's what the ending of this
Mm,
film was gonna be about, and then it went in
yeah, like
completely direction I was not expecting.
yeah,
But yeah. Yeah, but
mm,
it was a good sequence, I really
uh,
liked that.
yeah. Yeah, but I've seen like, I've seen people complain about it, like them killing off Mutt, but they're being like, "Oh, that's a bit too harsh. You could have had maybe he calls Indy and they talk on the phone,
You
or
do know
you
that
could
nobody
someone
wants to
said."
work with Shia
Yeah,
LaBeouf because he's a piece of shit.
yeah,
Like, he's, like,
and then
toxic.
then yeah, and then someone was like, "Well, you could just recast him," and it's like, you guys hated like it wasn't just Shia LaBeouf people hated; they hated
Yeah,
the
people
character
hated
of Mutt
Mutt
as
as
well.
well, like
People hate him, but so what? Is that like what 15 years later? Oh no, we like him now, and it's like what? No, like Mutt was a terrible character. Don't
it's
bring him
just
back.
like
Like
it's just like,
like
yeah, it's it
he just
eh,
wasn't interesting. He wasn't like
it just added
he
it
just
added a bit
wasn't
more
a good character.
complexity, but also as well, I think the reason why they
Mm,
did it is 'cause, for people like me who don't wanna watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, if you wanted to watch this film again, you can just pretend that that film didn't
yeah,
happen because they never call
mm,
him Mutt. They just
yeah,
say, "My son," every time. So,
mm,
you can just
yeah. They
pretend
say like
Indiana Jones had a
yeah,
different son that wasn't Shia LaBeouf. There you go. Easy
yeah.
done.
I do like how as well when he says, "Oh yeah, it ruined, it created, it created like ruined their marriage," and he was like, "Oh yeah, his mother wasn't able to get through the
Yeah.
pain, and that's what kind of." But then you find out later on the end of the movie when Marianne
Whoa!
comes in, and
Spoilers.
well, maybe these who
Yeah, Marion
cares?
comes back at the end, doesn't
Um,
he? Yeah.
Marianne comes back, and then she says the line, "Oh, I've heard you are back. Are you back?" And that kind of implies that actually it was him um, who couldn't handle it, and he was the
Yeah, I
one who had
assume
to.
that's what she meant,
Yeah.
like, are you okay?"
Mm. Yeah, because he was getting used to being a dad and having a son, and then that kind of was all ripped away from him, um and but it was a very powerful scene as well. Like Harrison Ford sells it very well, and you can see the pain in Indy's kind of eyes and the thing that he's like gone through. I did like that little wink at the end where Helena's like, "You're still wearing the wedding ring, even though they're
Yeah,
separated."
exactly.
Um, yeah, I did. What do you think of that little joke at the start when he puts the magnet over her face? Like she's got a picture
Yeah,
of it.
I think that's fine. It's just, he wanted to
Yeah.
not look at her because I
Mm,
think he feels a little bit embarrassed about not being able to comfort her. Because this is what I
mm,
mean when I said there's bits of it in this script about it deconstructing Indiana Jones being at this point of his age. Indiana Jones is like a man's man, right?
mm.
He's a stoic. He just gets through the situation, with grit, and he's not
Yeah.
an emotional character. That this is him kind of trying to bury that down, where actually really he feels very
Mm,
ashamed of how he reacted to his
yeah.
son's death. And I think that's something that they, once again, in an earlier draft of the script, probably had a bit more to deal with. Like, he felt really torn up about his son's death and just didn't know how to express his emotions properly. And then that caused the
Yeah.
breakdown of his marriage. You
Mm,
think about things like that where you can see there's little bits I can see where it's like, this would have been more. This is where the script was more interesting, and it just sort of faded away because they wanted to
mm.
put in a kid who flies a plane.
Yeah. It was played. um, but it was a good scene, and did leave a good impact. Like it was a
Hmm.
it was a good emotional moment for Indiana Jones that you don't really
Yeah,
see.
exactly. I just wish there was
Um,
more of it.
and I just feel like if you're gonna do make Indy a bit more emotional, why not do it? Make it the last one. When he's an old man and he's reflecting on his life and everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
whatever.
and obviously, I don't like Matt Williams as a character. I don't like Shia LaBeouf either. So the fact that they took
Hey,
him off, I was
that's
happy with
fine.
that.
He's gone now. You don't have to do it.
Fine
And
by
like I
me.
said, you don't need to. You just need to pretend it was a different son that he had. There you
Yeah,
go. Easy.
exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, and then they ended up in
So
Sicily.
we did, yeah, yeah. So they end up in Sicily because they're looking for the other half of the
Yeah.
dial. Teddy gets captured,
I like the whole
and
bit as
then
well with the, sorry, just to kinda go back a little bit, just before they get to Sicily,
that's
where they
fine.
find the slab that tells them where the other
Mm.
half is, and it's
Yeah.
encased in, like, wax, and they, like, melt it off, and it's like that was like a
Mm.
classic little Indiana Jones
Yeah.
puzzly sort of thing.
Mm.
It's really good. It was like a
Mm.
red herring sort
Yeah.
of thing that Archimedes put in place that anybody could have read that and been like, "Aha." we'll go over here, like, we know where it is now," and it's like, "Nah, you fucking idiot, it's inside of it."
Yeah.
You fucking idiot.
Yeah, I didn't the only thing I didn't like about that sequence was when, they're traveling to Sicily's and then Avola's just watching them through the,
Binoculars.
binoculars. Yeah, and he's like, "They're going different path," and it's like, "Come on." Like,
Yeah, I mean,
that's just
again, it's
a
like
bit of
a
a
bit of a
stretch.
cat and mouse sort of like chasey
Yeah.
thing. I was alright
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
I was like, "Fuck it." They needs to get there somehow. He
Mm.
can't just, like, show up there and
Yeah,
be
yeah.
like, "Ha I knew it'd be here all along." That'd be ridiculous.
Aha!
And then it makes more sense
Yeah.
then when Teddy runs off in Sicily to sort of wander off on his own, and then he suddenly
Mm,
bumps into him. It makes more sense that they've been
mm.
following him the entire time to getting ready to kidnap him
Yeah.
so that
Mm.
they can use
So they
him
yeah.
later, even though they don't,
Mm.
use him at all. They just sort of have him,
Yeah.
and then and
Yeah.
that's it. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And then, like, there's that part where, later on where Helena and, him are singing because they're trying to see what the frequency
Oh,
is.
yeah, ba 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 bum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
That was good, that was good.
that
Once
was good.
again,
Yeah, it was a
if
bit
they just kept these 2 characters together, maybe something different would have happened with this film, but oh well.
yeah, yeah, who knows? Um, so they get inside it, and you have that scene where he's climbing up the rock, and then, he's actually going where and Helena's just like, "Are you okay?" He's just like, "I'm just thinking, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah,
I've got, joints,
yeah,
backaches."
it's all well and good
Um,
in him saying that, but he's still
mm,
fucking doing things.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
this is what I mean
I
where
do I do
play it up
mm,
more.
mm. But I did like that. Yeah, I do like how, like, again, it's acknowledging his age, and he's at this point where he's like, "Why am I doing
Yeah.
this? Like,
And
what
then
am
it
I
should have been
doing
like,
here?"
because you love adventure. You always wanna know
Mm,
what the secrets are, man. You wanna know history. You're a
yeah,
historian. You love discovering things. This is your
mm,
passion. That's basically what
yeah,
the film is trying to say. Is like, even though Indiana Jones is old, he's still got the passion in him.
yeah,
Like, that just
still there.
like, I mean, there's I've said it like 1,000 times, but there's a story there in the script which is more
Mm,
satisfying, but, well, doesn't matter.
mm,
So they end up
yeah.
in they end up in that room where they have to do the water displacement. I like that.
Water
It's a good
displacement.
little puzzle. It's nice to see
Mm,
Indy using his brain again.
it's
Indiana Jones
yeah,
is a
it's
scholarly man.
okay puzzle.
He
Mm,
knows a thing or two. And then obviously they end
yeah,
up in the tomb of Archimedes himself, and they get the other half of the
yeah, and then,
dial.
oh, yeah, and I do like that sequence where they've got, they're setting up the mystery and, because obviously we know it's time travel, but, how does it work
Yeah,
and
it's sort of been
everything.
speculated that
And then
like, obviously
mm,
Archimedes could use the dial to detect fissures in
yeah,
time. That's sort of the
yeah,
idea of it, that it could detect, like,
mm,
these fissures through,
yeah,
like, planetary movements that were irregular and things like that, which
yeah,
is an interesting idea. I like the idea of it. It adds a bit of physics,
mm.
mathematics side of it, but doesn't involve aliens, which is very good.
Yeah, yeah. But I do like when she's describing the things on the tomb, and she's like,
It's a
"This,
phoenix.
these
Yeah,
things
yeah,
don't
yeah,
tell
and they're
us."
like, "What?"
And then they open up, and
I
he's got
think
the
if
watch,
they had set that stuff up
and
earlier
that's
as well,
it.
that would have been more satisfying again as well. If they were like, "Wait a minute,
Mm,
found all these clues.
yeah,
These things shouldn't exist for years." Kind of things like that. I
mm,
like that though, with the watch on him and stuff.
yeah. It was able to, like, kind of set up the, the climax, well, which we'll go into the
Oh
climax
yeah,
in just a
we're
little
getting there
bit.
now. Another
So,
thing I want to say, just to go
so
back into Teddy hating corner, I hated how he defeated the big dude. I
oh,
hated it.
really? I
Hated
didn't
it
mind
so
that,
much.
but,
That big
mm,
dude should
I
have
was
been
like,
kicked the shit out of.
I don't know. I mean, the big dude's a Nazi, and the fact that Teddy was able to handcuff him and leave him there to drown, I
It's
was
just
like,
like whatever. It's like, I wanted to see that dude get
mm,
fucking his face turn into mulch. Like they
mm,
have a fight sequence. You know what I mean, like the classic muscle character
yeah,
sequence. I love those kinds of sequences in Indiana Jones films. It's
yeah,
always so satisfying to watch. But anyway,
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah,
they
so
succeed in getting so Vola and his men show up as well, and they succeed in getting the dial.
and
They try to escape
they
again,
shoot
and they
Indy.
shoot Indy. They do indeed, and
Yeah, he gets
he
shot.
somehow
He's
doesn't die,
bleeding.
despite the fact that he was shot and has been
Yeah,
bleeding for several hours. But
yeah. How the fuck did Indy, like, even survive, like,
Uh,
staying alive for that
he
long?
got
Like,
shot,
after
like, in a
the
bit where there was barely any blood vessels. He just got very lucky. It
mm,
hit the bone. It didn't
yeah,
snag on any vital organs. I don't know, whatever.
yeah.
Make up any excuse you want.
Do you think Vola did it on purpose to, like, try and make, like, wound
No,
him, but, like,
I
because he
don't
wanted
think so. He
to?
was in the middle of a firefight. I think it was just an
mm,
accident. I think it just got him where he got him,
yeah,
and then Indy couldn't move anymore because he's an old man, and they were like, "Ah, fuck it, let's bring him with us."
yeah,
And then, of course
yeah, I did like
and then we go to an airbase where they've got a
yeah,
bunch of
so,
planes to travel back to where so obviously the goal of Ola is to travel back to 1939? Yeah,
I believe so,
1939,
let me
so he
just
can kill
quickly
Hitler and then take
yeah,
over as the
1929.
leader of the Nazis so that he can then lead them to
Mm,
conquer the world, essentially, is his
yeah.
plan. So,
I do like
I
that
like
plan
it as
though,
well,
because I like the
but I
idea
just
of
thought it was really
mm,
fucking funny when and I was
yeah,
chuckling to myself in the cinema when I saw it. I just thought it
mm,
was really funny that when they got to that airbase, they all had Nazi uniforms on, and I get why they had them because they were going back in time, and
yeah,
they're going back in
mm,
time, and like going to
mm,
because they're gonna go see the Nazis there and be like, oh, ho, ho. Like ooh,
mm.
we Nazis from the future.
I
But I just thought it was really funny that they all had Nazi uniforms. It's like, did they like get a tailor to make them, or
yeah, like, how did they get the did they dig
So,
him
yeah,
up?
exactly. Like, how did they get them? It's so
Yeah,
funny. So
mm.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
but I do like how Vola brought him along to, like, kind of just spite Indy, being like, "Ha, see, we're going back in
yeah,
time,
yeah.
and you're gonna see you're going to, see a new
Yeah.
world, Mr. Jones," and it's
I'm gonna
Doctor Jones,
force you
and
to
it's like,
watch it kinda thing, yeah.
it's
Which is
pro
yeah,
yeah, I'm
classic
gonna
villain
force you to
shit, I love it.
mm.
So
The one thing
yeah.
how do you feel like so also Teddy gets the plane, Helena jumps on the plane, the time ripple opens, but then shocker,
Oh,
turns out continental
continental
drift. They did
drift. Yeah.
yeah, and then it turns out they're not going back to 1939. They're going back to
240 BC.
tw- yeah,
During the
240 BC.
during,
Uh,
the Roman siege of,
yeah.
I always forget the name of it. It's Sacres or something like that. And obviously,
Um,
I'm gonna look it up.
yeah,
Roman
Si-
siege
Siege of
of
Siege of Sacris, I think it is, and it's two, and I think they go back to 212
212
BC as
BC, yeah,
well.
sorry, not 240 BC, yeah.
Mm, okay.
Syracuse,
Um,
that's what it's called, Syracuse. Yeah.
Syracuse. Okay.
And,
Yeah.
then obviously they, they travel through this fissure and they end up there, and obviously,
Hmm.
who should be there at
Yeah.
Syracuse at the time but Archimedes himself, inventing
Yeah.
the dial.
And yeah, and then
Now
it turns out that like it can only go back to that moment.
well, yeah, he
Like
was
that's I
supposed to
think that's
come
the
back to
idea.
that moment, which I'll get on to
Mm,
why I hate that was like another big payoff moment that just didn't happen.
mm,
But anyway, more
yeah.
importantly, what did you
Um.
think of this moment,
What?
Connor?
Um. I mean, because we knew that time travel was going to
Yeah.
be a thing, and I think the thing I was worried about was they were going to do a thing where, he does go back to like the Second World
Mhm.
War, and they have kind of this weird thing where
You have, like, young Indy
where
and old Indy
yeah
have
meets
to
old indie. I'm just team up, and
yeah,
it's just
that would have
like
been really bad.
I don't
That would
want
have been
that
really
shit.
bad.
Um, But the fact that they go back to like a period in history, I feel like it works well for the character of Indy because he's a historian, he loves history, and the fact that he gets to like see it unfold and he's fascinated by it, it works well with his character. But I do like the fact that they actually did commit to they did commit to the time travel aspect.
Yeah.
They didn't do a thing where they were going to hint at it, but they weren't going to like they were like going to hint at it or something, and then something else happens and they end up not going back in time, or they try and describe it as something else where like in
Or
the
something
Crystal
happens,
Skull.
like, just before they get
Yeah,
into the
or like
wormhole,
how
there's, like, the
mm,
plane, like, doesn't work properly, and then, like, something happens there,
mm,
like,
yeah,
or it's another phenomenon, exactly, like you said, that doesn't
mm.
really yeah.
I know I'm not gonna lie, it was quite a cool thing having Indiana Jones go back in
I
time. I don't
I
know why,
fucking
like
love this. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie.
I
I was really
what
losing interest in this film about like I said, the beginning of the third of the film. I was starting to
mm,
lose interest. I was a bit like, right, this is
yeah,
kind of I don't know where this film is kind of going a bit cliched, and I was like, when they got back to fucking uh, back then, I was like, oh my god, I was not expecting them to do that. I
mm,
generally was like, actually,
yeah,
like, wow, impressive. I love the fact
mm,
that they were flying the planes, and then and then all the Romans were like, ah, dragons, and they were shooting.
dragons,
All the
yeah, calling
Nazis
them
were like
dragons.
shooting them with
Mm,
guns for some reason. It
yeah,
was so
yeah,
ridiculous. It was
getting
so
hit by
fucking
spears.
ridiculous that I was like, I love this.
Yeah,
This is
and
brilliant.
I loved how like it showed. the fact that, like, the Nazis were always kind of,
Idiots.
I think that, like,
Humbling idiots,
they were
yeah.
idiots,
Humbling
and
buffoons.
they're like they were these,
Well,
morons who
it's
were,
the
like, kind of,
idea of them, like,
yeah,
Volo's meant to be this
and also
genius
being
scientist, and it's like, well, the Nazis also had
mm,
scientists, and they believed in, like, fucking weird crackpot theories, which all
yeah,
proved to be,
they were
like, factually inaccurate. So
yeah,
it
and they were like
yeah, it just tracks, man.
and they were just, they were blinded by, their hatred and their arrogance, and again, this kind of, again, kind of, goes in the way where they were so Fuller was so blinded by, his hatred and arrogance for the new world and wanting the Nazis to conquer the earth, that he decided to go back in time and not actually properly realize that, oh wait, the dial only takes you back to like this one moment and
Yeah, and
nothing
that's kind of
else.
the weird thing because then I thought that there was gonna be a causality loop. You know what I mean? Do you know
Mm.
what I mean by a causality loop? A
No, you have to.
causality loop is like a thing in time travel. It's mainly more in time travel fiction, really. It's the idea that when you the best way to think about it is Terminator, right? So
Yeah,
Kyle Reese, though he's born in the future, he has to go back in time to have sex with Sarah Connor to create John Connor, right? That's a
yeah,
causality loop, basically. It's this idea that,
all right.
that these people don't technically, or this thing, whatever it is, doesn't technically exist, but due
Mm,
to an event of time travel, it then becomes into reality. So I thought that was going to be the case with the Dial of Destiny.
mm,
I
yeah,
thought that the whole point, the reason why they went back in that time was because Archimedes couldn't actually invent it, but
mm,
then they appear, the Indiana Jones appears with it essentially,
mm,
and then it's like, oh, here's the
yeah.
dial, and he's like, ah,
Mm.
that's what I thought it was going to be, but that's not what happened at all. He just invented it himself
Mm.
anyway.
Well, yeah, well, he's in the middle of inventing it, and then he sees the finished product, and I think
Yeah,
that's
I
the thing
think
that where he
maybe he
realizes,
goes like,
"Oh,
"Oh, that's how it's
they're making
supposed to
this.
work," kind of thing. But I thought they were
That's how
actually
it's
going to
supposed to work."
physically give
Yeah,
it to him, and he was going to be like,
but I like how he's like he races down to the battlefield, and
"On his horse, man."
he sees Voller's body, and he steals Voller's watch. He's just
Yeah,
fascinated by how this
he's a
works. Like it's
learned
a clock,
individual.
but
He loves robbing watches off
mm,
of dead people. What can I say? And then that
yeah,
explains why he
yeah,
has
yeah,
it on
exactly.
why he has it later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the tomb. Yeah. And I do like, and obviously it leads to the scene where Indy sees, him and Helena got the parachute. They're flying down. The Nazis crash, and crash and die.
yeah, it's fine.
And good. And then they land, and um, they land, and then Indy just looks, and he's just in awe about, he's like, I'm witnessing history
Yeah.
right now,
I like that.
and
I like the fact that
then we
Indy
get
went back to, like, an
mm,
antiquity era sort of thing, like,
yeah,
really old history
and,
that he would have been absolutely fascinated with, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and then he tells Helena, "I'm gonna stay.
Mm.
I want to stay." What did you think of him
Oh,
wanting
yeah,
to
it
stay?
made sense for Indy as a character.
Mm,
He's like, "I'm a man of the past, I want to be here." I mean,
mm,
the only thing I didn't like about Helena's response to that is like, "Oh, it'll cause a paradox." Whoa, like,
mm,
I was just like, "No, just say what you wanna say," which is a fucking, "I don't wanna leave you here.
yeah,
I love,"
yeah,
we may have had a rocky
you,
relationship, but you're my, I love you. Like, as
you,
a family member, I
yeah,
love you're the
yeah,
closest thing I have to a father. I'm not losing you too.
mm,
That's what she should have
yeah,
been more aiming towards. I don't give a fuck about time paradoxes and shit like that. Who cares? Like, whatever. Like,
mm,
as soon as you travel back in time, surely all paradoxes are off the table because you shouldn't technically be able to do that in the first
mm,
place. But anyway, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
My point is
yeah,
that that emotional crux is more important, which I think is what it was really
mm,
meant to be about. Because she obviously got very emotional when she was like, "I can't,"
mm,
like, he can't stay. Like, she's saying, "Fucking, I need you right now." To like,
yeah,
because you weren't there for
mm,
me before, but you can be here for me now, which is, like I said, is like a
yeah,
thing that was probably in a earlier version of the script, but then wasn't fleshed out as much. But
mm,
yeah,
yeah.
so I
Where
liked it as like a concept for Indiana Jones to be
mm,
like, "Just leave me here, like I'm done."
yeah,
But she's like, "No, it's not happening,"
yeah,
and then she knocks him
yeah,
out, and he wakes up
mm.
back in his apartment
Back in
in New York.
yeah, but just to
Oh
quickly
yeah,
go back
sorry.
to that scene though, I do like no, it's okay. To yeah, I do like it 'cause I do like that part because that shows just how, he's this old man, and he's so, like, he's lost his son, his marriage is over, he's not the adventurer he once was, and he's in, this kind of, he's in the past, and he just thinks to himself, I think it just shows that how, with a down and broken, he really is in this movie, the fact that he's dying, but he wants to die in the past. He wants to be buried in somewhere in the past. He doesn't want to. His dad's gone. His friends are all gone. Um, but I do, but one thing I would say, I mean, because obviously Helena's trying to explain to him, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. You have to come back. Um, I actually would have liked it if maybe because obviously I don't- him and Helena can speak the what's the language that
Oh,
Archimedes uses?
do you mean as in the code language he uses?
The
Yeah, it's
code
like
like yeah, yeah.
Polypus or something like that. I can't remember exactly. There are
Mm,
two languages they use. It's Polypus and then like something else, but they're like coded languages. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, so like because obviously they can speak and they know what he's
Well,
saying.
he wouldn't have
So I
spoke
would
that. He would have spoke ancient Greek. He would have spoke
English,
ancient Greek.
ancient
Yeah.
Greek. All right. So maybe I actually wouldn't have minded if maybe they had a bit where it's Archimedes that actually talks him into going back. Like he says to him, I can see in your eyes you're a broken man, but you don't belong here. You have to go
Uh,
back. You've
yeah, maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe. I don't
I
know.
just think
I
it would
just
have
feel
been
like
better if the relationship
mm,
between Helena and Indy was better fleshed out in the film to bring them
yeah,
together. And then obviously when he's like, "Just leave me here to die," she's like, "No, fuck that. You're not staying here to die. I don't want that. That's not how I want you to go
mm,
out, and I need you. So let's get back
yeah.
on that
And then
plane."
yeah, because then she knocks him out, and it's just a little bit anticlimactic. It was
Yeah, I
funny,
think
but it was just
I definitely
yeah,
think that little moment could have been better in a different
yeah.
script, but I still really enjoyed that ending sequence because it was so ridiculous.
Oh yeah. And then he wakes back up
In this filthy, filthy, dirty
in his
apartment where he
in
doesn't
his
wash his
apartment. He
dishes. I
sees
saw them dishes, Indiana Jones, you lazy piece of shit.
and then Helena's
Mm.
talking to him, and she's like, you couldn't have stayed there, Indy. You need to be here." And then he just looks and just goes, "For
Yeah,
who?"
then
And
Marion walks in,
it's just
and
like,
there we go.
and Marion walks in, and they reenact that scene from
Yeah, I
Raiders
like
of the
that.
Lost
I was
Ark.
like, that was a
Yeah, I
little
did
bit
like that,
that had those 2 in
and
general have good chemistry together, Karen Allen and Harrison Ford,
mm, carry on,
so
yeah,
I think it worked,
and
yeah.
it was just good. And it was good, it was just a good little callback to that scene. You see Salah again for a little brief moment, but it was good. Yeah, it was a good callback to that scene because it helped round. It was a good solid. That's what I mean. It's a good solid enough ending to where it's sweet and it's
Yeah,
nice
exactly.
that they've reconciled. Their marriage is not fixed, but they're going to
Yeah,
work on
they
it.
still love each
And
other at the end
then
of the
and
day, that's the most important
mm,
thing, yeah.
yeah, and then everyone leaves the apartment.
They
We
go to get ice
pan up.
cream.
They see his hat. What do you think of the old school kind of circle
I liked
on
it.
his
I was
hat? And
like, you
then
don't see that kind of thing
yeah,
anymore. I really liked it.
mm. And then obviously that kind of in saying that the adventures continue, but we're never going to see him because this is the
Yeah,
last one.
that's fine. I'm
Uh,
okay with that.
yeah, but overall, I do think Dial of Destiny it's a solid enough ending for the series because again this series could have ended terribly.
It could have been
It could
much
have been
worse than it was,
much
and I
worse.
know that throughout this
Mm.
podcast, I've kind of made it seem as if I'm very critical of film, but I think it's just because, I mean, Indiana Jones means so much to me as like a thing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
when you
exactly. Yeah.
know that there's a story there that could have been more interesting for this character, and it wasn't really utilized because of
Mm.
whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say make it seem as if I
Mm.
know what it is. I'm just speculating, but like
Mm.
I you just want it to be more satisfying, and I think
Yeah.
while I did think that this film was good, definitely better than King of the Crystal Skull, which is a good thing.
Mm.
There are elements of it that could have been really just like tightened up and improved, and it could
Yeah.
have been even better.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of it, really. There's not even a post-credit sequence.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, no.
weren't setting up Vol.
Setting up another
Right. So there's
spin-off.
another thing that I wanted to bring up that I thought was going to happen in the film because I've been talking about the whole
Yeah,
moon
yeah.
landing thing. So I thought
Mm.
Vola was going to try and hijack the moon landing. And I thought that was
Mm.
gonna be a key component to the time travel, because I was like, "Oh, not that they're gonna
Mm.
actually fly through fissures in time with an airplane." I thought they were gonna have to go at a certain speed to
Mm.
create the vision that they needed to travel through time, and I thought that was gonna be related to the moon landing.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought that they were bigging it
Okay.
up so much in the beginning of the film. Obviously, he was a scientist that worked, and he's like,
Mm.
"You fool! You think I built these rockets for you? No, I built it to go back in time and become the new
Yeah.
Hitler." Like that would have been
And
pretty cool. I'd have enjoyed that a
then
lot because it would have it would have been very
yeah.
ridiculous. Going back to ancient Greece, though,
Mm.
that's also pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a good ending of that. Does sound like a pretty cool idea. I'm just glad because obviously there was that dumbass rumor running around that the ending was going to be Indiana Jones was going to die in the past, um, he was going to get erased, and Helena was going to like replace him, like put on his hat and like step in, like replace him in the other movies, so he gets erased from the other films.
Oh, what you mean is in Raiders
Yeah,
of the Lost Ark?
yeah, like she erased, like he gets erased from Raiders, like because he, I think the root,
Well,
like
why
I
would
mean, it
she
wasn't
be there?
obviously
That doesn't make any sense.
that's the thing. Well, yeah, exactly. It was a dumbass rumor that a lot of people were spreading around
I think if
because
anyone
for
believed
some
that, they
reason,
should, like, get their brain checked for
yeah,
idiocy. That
it's
just
it's
doesn't
just it,
make
it
any
was just so
sense.
stupid.
But how would she be
Yeah, it just doesn't
whatever.
make any sense. And it was like, "Oh, yeah, that he's gonna die in the past, and then he's gonna get erased from time, and then she's gonna take
Look,
his place, put his
look,
hat on,
look,
replace
all I'm
him," because
saying
it's
is Marvel has fucking
like,
ruined
come on.
people's brains. It's turned them into idiots who say stupid things like that.
Oh, no, like,
It's mushed
it's
their
more just the
brains.
people who it's basically the people who just want to, spread,
Yeah,
who are like, "We
probably.
gotta make stuff up. We gotta spread hate because that will get us views. We gotta, like,
Yeah, I've
use
seen a
you
lot of
make we make
videos
we
on
made."
YouTube that are like,
Mm,
"Oh, Indiana Jones is not very good. This new film is not very good.
mm,
It's not as good as the last one." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Okay." So,
and then, like, and
I
you
don't think
see
any I
people,
don't
like, with
think
the
I think
thumbnails.
anybody who was expecting it to be incredible was kidding themselves.
Mm,
I really do.
yeah. If you thought this was gonna be as good as the original trilogy,
No,
like,
come
come
on.
on, man, like,
Not
be
with not
realistic
with
here.
Indiana Jones being in his
Yeah,
70s, man, come on. If I wanna
yeah,
see it's
and it's just one
yeah.
of those. Mm. You have these people that, go around being like, "Oh, I have a source, and from my
Who's your
source," and it's
son?
like, you've
What the
clearly
hell are you
made this
talking
up.
about? Shut
Like
up.
like, it's just what these people do is that they just make predictions. Like, we got this covered, a website that is notorious for making fake
Mm.
stuff, is like, does this all the time, where they will have a scoop. What they do is that they don't actually have sources. They just look at the current trends that's going on in Hollywood, the current formulas of what studios
Yeah.
do and what's going on in the world, and then they just use that to like create a kind of to like make this lie, and then they'll go, "Oh yeah, from our sources, it's a scoop." And then if when it's not to be true, it's like, "Oh well, my source isn't 100% correct, so you should have taken that with a grain of salt." And it's like, come on, man. Like I think the story they're going around now is that, oh yeah, the ending for this film got reshot, and it's like, well, I mean, films get reshot all the time, but
Mm.
prove
Yeah,
it.
like,
Yeah.
whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah,
Mm. Like,
yeah, that was down.
what do you think? Yeah. What do you think of John Williams' score in
Oh,
this?
do you
I thought
know
it was
what? I
good.
don't agree at all. I think this was not a good score. There were
Oh,
moments in
really?
the film where I was like, "Where's the music? Where is it? Why do I not hear?"
Mm.
You compared this soundtrack to like Raiders or Temple of Doom or Last Crusade, have these
Yeah.
amazing scores that like flow into each other really well, like in all these moments, and
Mm.
it's non-existent in this film. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
John Williams is like 90 years old. Maybe he was just like,
Mm.
do you know what? I'm just going to phone it in. And you know what? Fair enough. He's had a glowing career. He doesn't need to keep doing it at this age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I felt the soundtrack was really lacking. There was just a couple moments when I
Yeah.
heard the Indiana Jones, the sort of classic theme, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I was like,
Du-du-du-du.
"Oh, there's the music," and then it just sort of faded away afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, okay, there it goes." It's now
Mm.
gone back to just being nothing, not even wallpaper.
Mm.
John Carpenter's soundtracks are
Yeah.
more engaging than this, and that dude just like does like drones in the background.
Yeah. Oh god. Um, and yeah, so, I mean, I thought it
Yeah,
was fine, like, it's John
it's
Williams,
a it's
man,
a
like,
it's
it
a
was
qu-
good enough. To me, it was good enough.
the film
It
as a
was good
whole
enough.
is like a 6 out of 10.
Mm.
It's like it's not
Mm.
terrible.
No.
Chris Kingdom and the Crystal Skull is like a terrible film because it's
Yeah.
just like unbearable. Um,
Mm.
this film is like passable. Like it's like, all right,
Yeah.
you did just enough to make me not walk out, and
Yeah.
there were elements of it there that I do feel
Mm.
could have been, like could have made this
Mm.
film like way better than it is. Like actually could have made it like a really good film, but it
Yeah.
just for whatever reason they weren't fully fleshed out, and yeah, that's a
Mm.
shame. But, as far as it goes for the end of Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford's, role, playing
Yeah.
that character, I think it could have gone worse. So, yeah, I'm relatively happy with
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
You can go to
So
your
let's
local
quickly
cinema and watch it now, folks.
yeah, go
Or
watch it now.
don't, do whatever you want. It's
What's
probably gonna be on Disney Plus in, like,
mm,
2 months because this film's made, like,
probably
no money, and it's considered a
yeah,
fuck
no money at
well,
the box
I say
office.
it's made no money, it's made, like, 200,000,000, which is a lot of money, but that's not enough
Mm.
for
But considering the budget for this movie, just
yeah.
insane. Let's talk about quickly the future of Indiana
Wow.
Jones. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I feel like obviously they shouldn't make another one. There should not be another Indiana Jones movie ever after this movie. However, if they have to do it, like if they like, let's do another Indiana Jones film. I'm thinking about this a lot. I feel like I actually wouldn't mind if maybe they did an animated one, like an animated indie movie.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd like an animated Indiana Jones
Yeah.
TV series, I think that'd be better. Like an old Saturday morning
Mm.
cartoon almost style. I think
Yeah.
that would be a little better. There's a
Mm.
what's the name of that guy? Let me find it. I'll find it now. There's a guy who did like a
Mm.
little Indiana Jones like sort of like tribute film that was animated, and it was really
Oh, really?
good. Let me find it actually.
Mm.
That's it. Patrick Schoonmaker. That's his name.
Mm.
I'll send you the link
Alright.
so you can watch it later. It's really good.
Sweet, yeah. But I would love I would if obviously I mean, I know yeah, obviously, like, I don't want to do another one, but if they
I
did,
mean,
I'd like some kind of because we've seen the thing with Indiana Jones is that we've done everything we can with him in live action. So I feel like if you have to do another one, why not just delve into the world of animation? Because with animation, and
yeah, with animation you
you know this
can.
as well, like it's limitless.
With
Like you can do whatever the fuck
anime.
you
You
want
ever
with
seen that Harry
animation.
Partridge cartoon where it says that? You know
What's
Harry
that?
Partridge? Do you ever
Harry
Yeah,
Partridge.
Happy Harry. He did like a Saturday Morning Watchmen. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
he
him.
did a
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
video
yeah.
which is
Like,
called "With Animation You Can," which is like a little musical video he did. It's very good.
mm,
With animation
yeah.
you can do anything.
Oh yeah, you can
Now
do anything, and I feel like
yeah, go on.
if you want to, like if you want to go into the kind of more like weird and out there stuff of Indiana Jones, I feel like if you did it animated, I feel like because of animation being limitless and you being able to do whatever you want, I feel like audiences would be able to uh like they like deal with it a little bit better. Um and also like you could get around the recasting of Harrison Ford because you could always get a sound alike or something like who has that Harrison Ford voice, like David Harbour, for example. Like he has that kind of Harrison Ford voice. The guy who plays Hopper in Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, yeah, because
No, it's
he does have
close
that
enough.
Harrison Ford kind of voice.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Well, I mean, his character in Hopper is generally the Harrison Ford kind of character you would have seen in the '80s anyway.
Mm.
Um, so like you could always have him or have a sound alike or something. And yeah, I just think it'd be really cool and interesting because Spider Man went into animated movies and that's done really well across the Spider Verse. And you've had the Mario Brothers movie that's done really well. Animation is such in a good place
I
right
just
now. Like we're
yeah,
having
I
all
just
like
wish it
it's
wasn't just
dominating.
children's films, though.
Yeah, I just wish it would have
Can we
gone
get some
yeah
more,
making
please? Thank you.
more like mature adult kind of
Thank
animated
you, that'd be
movies.
very nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
I
why I think,
think
like, if they do
I think for
mm,
me, for the
yeah.
future of Indiana Jones, as it were, one, I don't think there's gonna be a future in feature films because this film has already made, like in the eyes of the producers,
Yeah.
has not made enough.
Mm,
So
yeah,
let's scrap that off of me immediately. That's just not gonna happen.
yeah,
Um, the other aspect of it as well is,
yeah.
I think the future of Indiana Jones lies in one thing and one thing only, and that is the video game that Bethesda's making. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
this?
Yeah, yeah, they got announced, like,
Now
what was it,
yeah, and
2021?
now do you know who's making this game?
Who is making
Machine
this game?
Head, Games, and do you know what other, game series they worked on recently?
Ooh,
Ooh, I'll give you a
uh,
clue, it's another game
mm,
about killing Nazis.
I can't
It
you
was
have
the
to think of it.
Wolfenstein
You
games.
have to give it Oh, Wolfenstein oh,
New
yeah,
Order and New
they did the
Colossus and all them
Wolfenstein one.
ones. So I'm really excited for
Yeah,
that because I feel like if anybody's gonna make a decent Indiana Jones game, it's probably gonna be them guys.
yeah, they will be,
And
yeah, because,
until then, here's my Indiana Jones game recommendations, for you guys at home. If you wanna fill the void
fill the
okay.
void. Um, I have one recommendation that you should never
Oh, yeah?
buy.
Why don't you tell me?
yeah, Indiana Jones and the Staff
Yes,
of
we
Kings.
are all
Do
familiar
not
with
buy that
Stafford
game.
Kings, the
Uh,
infamous
yeah,
the infamous
especially
game.
don't buy the Wii, especially the Wii version.
Yeah,
Oh my god, the Wii. It was like a motion control for, like,
I know
everything.
it's bad. But there luckily for you
God.
folks out there, until the new one comes out, there are actually 2 pretty good Indiana Jones games already. There is
Mm.
Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. You may remember this one, classic
Yep,
one
yeah.
from
Solid film.
2003.
Solid game.
And then
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis as well. And I bought
Mm.
both of these games recently, and I've been playing through them, and they both hold
Oh,
up really
nice.
well. They're both really fun games. I think
Mm.
what's funny though is that Emperor's Tomb really has the sort of action adventure, sort of like flashy action of Indiana Jones down to a T. The
Yeah.
controls are definitely
Yeah,
very
yeah.
outdated. Like, you can't really, it's not like Uncharted. It's not a third person shooter really. It is very much an old
Mm.
school platformer where you just happen to be Indiana Jones.
Mm.
And Fate of Atlantis is a point and click adventure game, so you don't really do much combat, but
Yeah.
it's got down the wit and like the writing and like the scenario, like the sort of the
Yeah.
set pieces down really well. So I actually think if this new game has a combination of both of them, I think it will be
Mm.
pretty good. So
Yeah.
the future is video games, my friend. There you go.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, we've got the Lego ones as well.
The
Don't forget the
classic
Lego
Lego
games.
ones. You
Lego
want to
Indiana
play
Jones,
as
you
like
know?
a weird Lego man. You do that, man.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I
Yeah.
do with my fantasy, where I want to pretend I'm a cool archaeologist going around the world. I want
Yeah.
to pretend I'm made of Lego.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God.
Well,
Yeah, so yeah,
yeah.
that's overall the, discussion of
Dial of
Dial of
Destiny.
Destiny. Um,
It
yeah,
was
so,
okay. I give it a
it was okay.
C, just a C. I think a C is a good grade.
Out of out of 10, I'll probably give it, like, 3.
3 out of 10.
Maybe 3. No, 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 sorry, out of
Out of
5,
5, yeah.
give it a
I
3.
think I was gonna say 3 out of
Out
10. Blimey, that is very
God.
harsh. That's
Yeah, out of 5, yeah, out of 5, I'll give it, like, a 3. Out of 10, you know what? I'll
6.
give it,
A
you know,
6
a
or a
7.
7, I
I'll
think
give it
is
a
the right
7.
area for it.
6 or 7, yeah,
Because
right area for
yeah,
it.
like, I think that's the right area for it,
It's a
and I agree with you on that.
it's a solid enough ending to the Indiana Jones franchise, and if you wanna see how it ends, then,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
check it out.
There's worse films to watch in the cinema,
Yeah,
I assume. Uh,
mm,
I don't even know what's out now.
yeah, so yeah, well, we've actually, I might do an episode on the, Heiner
Yes,
kind of talent
Oppenheimer
thing,
and Barbie.
'cause I
Right,
really
look, listen, guys at
yeah,
home, you need to understand this is, like, the greatest moment in cinema. Um,
mm, yeah, like,
they
they
both
I
come
might
out
not
on
be
the
able to
same
go
day.
same day. I mean, I might not be able to see him on the 21st, but I'll definitely go see him on the same day, like, do a double
I
feature.
might do that
Uh,
because it seems like a really fun thing to do. 'Cause I like
yeah,
the
exactly, yeah.
contrast of it. I love the contrast of this whole thing so much. It's just perfect.
Mm,
Like, I wanna
yeah.
and you know what? They both genuinely look like really good films, both of them do. I saw the
Mm, oh,
trailer for
yeah,
both of them
definitely.
before Indiana Jones, and I was like, "Yeah, like, cool, let's
Yeah.
watch these films. They look really fun." Barbie looks
Mm,
really
I
fun.
mean
Oppenheimer looks like a really serious
oh, yeah.
drama about a man
Yeah.
developing the most horrible weapon known to man. But, you know.
Mm. Which one do you watch first though,
You watch
Alex? Do you watch,
Oppenheimer first. Barbie,
yeah,
you
that's what
gotta
I'm
leave it
thinking
off with
of.
Barbie because Oppenheimer's gonna be really heavy. It's literally about a man
Yeah.
developing a nuke, so like creating the first ever
Mm.
nuke. So like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I'm gonna hopefully next episode might be about that. I also might do an episode on the, new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie,
yo, like
Mutant Mayhem, when
when
that
that
comes
comes
out.
out, like you have no idea how hyped I
Yeah.
am for that. Like,
Oh, do you wanna come back for this for the next one? For
Absolutely
that one?
right. Look, TMNT is
No.
how I imagine people feel about Star Wars and like all those other franchises. That's
Mm.
how I feel about TMNT.
Yeah.
I fucking love Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles so much. It's so
Mm.
ridiculous and it's so versatile, which is why I think it
Yeah.
has lasted and is still not
So long.
gotten stale. Is because it's just
Oh, no,
constantly. It's
yeah.
so easy. I mean, a lot of it
Mm.
is very similar, where it's very similar premise, but you can change up enough about it to where it still feels the same, but also is different. And I think that's something that,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing else can really do.
Mm. Yeah. Well, except for the Michael Bay produced ones, they were terrible.
Yeah, we definitely don't. They
Didn't
are,
happen. They didn't happen. They
yeah,
didn't
man.
happen. So I'm probably gonna do an episode
Cool.
on that. So yeah, if you wanna come back for that
Absolutely,
one,
my man.
that'd be
I
grand.
love Teenage Mutant
Yeah.
Turtles,
Yeah, let's do it.
so let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. If you wanna do Barbie Heider,
Yeah, I might do
then,
that. Yeah, why not?
yeah,
When
yeah,
does TMNT
yeah.
come out? Let's have a look.
4th of
Oh, that's
August.
really 4th. Fuck,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
4th
like
of
2
August.
weeks.
Yeah,
My
comes out in 2 weeks.
goodness.
It's projected to do pretty okay at the
D
late
y
release
Are you
date.
sure it's the 4th of
Yeah.
August? Yeah, it is.
Well, it comes out second of August in the United States. Let me check the
Where's it
UK
coming
release
out
date.
over here?
Yeah, 4th of
Cool,
August.
sick, yeah. I'm definitely watching that.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. It looks like a good film. Looks like
Yeah,
a good
exactly.
time. A good time. And with that and done now, yeah, so that was it. That was Indiana Jones and the Dial of
Alright.
Destiny,
Alright,
and,
Connor, I've got
you know,
these 2
thank
horses here.
yeah?
I think it's about time we
Alright.
rode off into the sunset, isn't it? Alright,
Oh,
let's do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Alright,
let's
get
do
on
it,
the
let's do
horse.
it. Let's do it, yeah. Yeah, remember to,
Remember to like and
show my
subscribe.
website around and yeah. Like and
Please.
subscribe. Check out the LinkedIn page of Shedonist Studios, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see you when we
Alright.
see you next.